So there I was, sleeping like a rock after a whole day of moving into my new apartment, when my little brother Qin Ziwu starts shaking me awake. Bro, wake up. Something's outside my window, I groaned. This kid is 187 centimeters tall, plays sports, and he's scared of what? A bug? It's a bat. A huge bat. You're scared of one bat? Pathetic. I tried to turn on the light. Nothing. Power's out, great. I got up anyway, grumbling the whole way, ready to smack this, scary, bat into a keychain for his bed. Then I saw it. That thing on his window wasn't a bat. It was a monster wall of black, wriggling flesh, covering almost the entire window, and my brother's window is not small. Under the moonlight, I could just make out wings. Okay, fine, bat-shaped. But that wasn't even the weird part. The weird part was the view behind it. My apartment, which I just bought in the middle of the city, was now sitting next to a wild forest and a winding river. Where did my downtown go? I yelled. Bro, your house lost its value, my genius brother said, finally noticing the trees instead of the monster. The bat thing banged on the glass. We grabbed kitchen knives, stood our ground, and then the bat just spread its wings, doubled in size, and flew off into the forest like it had somewhere better to be. I checked my phone. No signal. 0 bars. Yeah, my whole apartment complex had been teleported to another world. By morning, the whole neighborhood was outside comparing notes. Turns out our entire complex got dragged along. Tin buildings, the walls, the gates, even the underground parking garage. Water, gas, electricity, all dead. 2 suns hung in the sky. So yeah, we probably weren't on Earth anymore. A middle-aged guy in a suit, Huang Tao, tried to rally everyone into one big group, talking about teamwork and survival skills. A shirtless bald guy immediately accused him of trying to grab power. Classic. Meanwhile, a sweet old lady named Grandma Li was busy being the real hero, teaching everyone how to salt and smoke meat before it spoiled. My brother and I went to learn, even though our fridge only had delivery leftovers, LOL. She fed us apples too. Nicest person in the apocalypse so far. Back home, I took inventory. Some bread, instant noodles, protein powder, half a bucket of water, glue, rope, 2 kitchen knives, a fruit knife, scissors. Rich people problems, am I right? Then we saw a group of adults exploring outside the wall. A snake, thick as a sewer pipe, 5 or 6 meters long, nearly ate somebody. Everyone booked it back inside. Yeah, the animals here are not normal-sized. I used my broken fruit knife blade, a clothes pole, some rope, and glue to build a spear. Suited up in my thickest winter boots and jacket like I was heading into battle, not a parking lot. At the south gate, guess who I ran into? My supervisor from work, Wang Wan. Somehow, even at the end of the world, she tried to recruit me and my brother into her little team, talking about efficiency and division of labor like we were still in a meeting. I said no thanks and walked off. She was not happy about that. My brother just laughed. Bro, does she think she's still your boss out here? Some people never stop being managers, I guess. Standing at the broken glass doors of the south gate, staring out at chest-high grass and endless wild forest, one thought hit me hard. This is really happening. We're not in the city anymore. I swept my clothes pole spear through the grass a few times. Bugs went quiet. My brother followed me out the gate. Where are we going, bro? I looked around. The river might have more resources, but better to stay safe and close to home first. Ziwu spotted a huge green grasshopper, almost as big as his hand. I told him it probably tasted great grilled, packed with way more protein than beef. He tried to catch it. It jumped away in 2 hops. Typical. We tried chasing some small brown critters too, rat-like things darting through the grass. Too fast, too many bushes. I figured we'd need traps instead. Then we found a mulberry tree. My brother climbed up like a monkey while I stood guard below. The tree was hidden between some other trees, so at first nobody noticed us, until an old man walked by, saw us, and ran off to bring reinforcements. Sure enough, a group showed up. Some perm-haired Annie started throwing shade, saying it was immoral not to share. I wasn't in the mood. You were just too slow. Not my problem. A skinny old man tried to scold me too. I stepped forward with my spear, and suddenly nobody had anything else to say. One younger guy in the group quickly smoothed things over, saying finders keepers. The Annie backed off, and then ordered her own scared teenage daughter to go climb the tree instead. The poor girl looked terrified of me and my weapon, but eventually climbed up anyway. More families arrived. My brother climbed down, handed me his backpack, half full of mulberries. Good haul. We started heading back when we heard screaming from the river. Crocodile. Someone got bitten by a crocodile. We ran over. A massive crocodile was thrashing in the water, dragging a man under, the water turning red. A teenage girl on the shore was screaming for someone to save her dad. People threw rocks and sticks, but it was already too late. The man stopped moving. The crocodile pulled him into deep water. My brother muttered that the animals here all seemed way too big. I reminded him about last night's giant bat. Bats usually live in colonies. If there's a whole cave full of bats that size somewhere. Yeah, we didn't want to think about that. Back home, I dumped out the mulberries. They'd already started going soft and changing taste after just sitting in the bag a while, spoiling fast. I decided to try drying some on the balcony to make dried fruit, laying them out on cardboard like I'd seen in videos. My brother wasn't convinced it would work, but hey, worth a shot. I also ate a few of the damaged ones myself, soft, juicy, sweet with a nice bit of tartness. Not bad at all, and apparently loaded with vitamins. At noon it got brutally hot outside, two suns sitting close together in the sky, like two eyes staring down at us. I stayed in and drew a rough map from memory. Our apartment complex, the river to the south, mountains and forest to the north. Then I took a nap on the floor since the bed was too hot. Slept way longer than planned. Woke up at 4:40 p.m., phone almost dead, so I just shut it off completely. Downstairs, people had started setting up little flea markets under the trees, trading random stuff they didn't need. My brother wanted to go look. I told him to wait. No one gives away good stuff for free yet, not until people start running out of food. I reminded him, no network, no power, we're on our own now. Weapons, food, water, that's the priority. Always boil water before drinking. Always cook food before eating. He called me out for feeding him raw mulberries earlier. I smacked him on the head for talking back and said I'd teach him how to make fire with friction since neither of us smokes, and we had no lighter. Outside, the mood in the complex had turned heavy. Word got around that someone in Building 6 got bitten by a venomous snake and died. Body already turning purple by the time they carried him back. Combined with the crocodile victim from this morning, that's 2 dead on day 1. People were scared. At one of the market stalls, an old man tried to buy a lighter for 5 liters of clean water or a full meal's worth of food. He balked at the price, tried to just grab it and run, calling foul when the seller, a big tall guy, grabbed his wrist back. Classic scam attempt. The seller mouthed something rude at him without saying it out loud. Then he turned to me and offered to sell me one too. I just smiled and waved him off. We wandered around a bit more. Most people were selling luxury items, electronics, gold jewelry, useless stuff for actual survival, and everyone wanted food in exchange anyway. One crowd had gathered around a guy selling a fishing rod. My brother got excited, but the price was insane. People were fighting over it. I told him fishing rods don't matter as much as bait. You can catch fish with just a stick, string, and a bent pin. I recognized the seller haggling nearby, Huang Tao, the guy from this morning who wanted everyone to team up. No luck finding another fruit tree, but we did spot someone's hidden rat trap near what looked like a rodent burrow. Marked the location for later. Back home, closed all the curtains, locked up. Dinner was 4 small buns and half a bottle of water. Still hungry, but I need to start rationing until we find more food. Lying in bed, exhausted from the whole day, I drifted off fast despite going to bed way earlier than usual. Just before sleep took over completely, I swear I heard a voice. You have successfully survived day 1 in the wild. Collected a small amount of fresh fruit. Drew a simple map. Overall score, 3 points. Reward obtained. Flint X1, simple trap blueprint. Torn page, X1. I woke up and felt something cold in my hand. A metal rod. I sat up, and there was also a piece of paper next to me. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain to look. It was a magnesium fire starter. Wait, where did this come from? Then I remembered the strange voice from my dream last night. I couldn't remember most of the dream, just that one cold announcement. And now here was proof sitting right in my hand. A daily reset. Probably happens at midnight. I'd stay up late tonight to test that theory. I checked my brother's room. Kid sleeps like a log, snoring like thunder. Nothing new showed up on his bed. Nothing new anywhere else in the house either. I woke him up and asked if he heard anything strange last night. Huh? Is the bat back? He jumped and looked at the window in a panic. No. I mean, did you hear any voices? Like in a dream? He had no idea what I was talking about. Fine, never mind. I spread out the paper on the balcony. It was a torn page showing how to build a simple snare trap for catching small animals. My brother thought it looked easy enough, just needed wood and rope. Lucky for us, I had rope. I pulled down our curtain cords and cut them into 2 pieces with a kitchen knife. We grabbed some mulberries as bait and headed out. Other people were already outside too. Some were even fishing by the river, smart enough to stand on the rocks so the crocodiles couldn't reach them easily. We picked 2 spots for our snare traps, close enough to the complex to be safe, but hidden enough that nobody would steal our catch, and far enough from the open ground and river where dangerous animals might be. One trap went by the bushes on the north wall, another under a tree 80 meters northwest. My brother found a long, straight, slightly bendy branch and asked what I thought. Perfect for a spear if we tied something sharp to the end. Then we heard a screech from the sky. A massive shadow came speeding toward us. I yanked my brother under a tree just in time. Someone in the open field wasn't so lucky. A giant bird snatched a teenage boy clean off the ground by the shoulder, carried him high into the air like he was a helpless little lamb, then just let go. He hit the ground with a horrible thud. The bird circled back, grabbed someone else, and flew off toward the northern mountains. This time, the person in its claws stopped struggling almost immediately. That bird's wingspan had to be 6 or 7 meters. I realized right then just how low humans ranked on the food chain out here. And that was just what we'd seen in 2 days. Who knows what else was out there? We decided to head to the river, staying close to the trees, avoiding open ground. On the way, we passed a woman arguing with an older lady who was secretly digging up wild vegetables. The woman wanted to know what she'd found, got nasty about it, then tried to snatch the bag right out of the older lady's hands. The old lady grabbed my arm, asking me to referee. I sided with her. Obviously, you don't touch other people's stuff. The rude woman stormed off, embarrassed. Then the old lady tried to slip away too, but I stopped her. We're all neighbors. We should help each other. Her own words, thrown right back at her. She realized she'd talked herself into a corner. Still, better to share a little than get robbed, so she showed us the plants. Purslane, some kind of wild greens, fern shoots. Turns out this area's got way more edible plants than I thought. I just never recognized them. She also warned us, this stuff runs out fast if everyone starts picking it. We thanked her and kept going. My brother pointed out an old man further away, obviously sneaking around picking his own secret stash of wild veggies while pretending to just be taking a walk. When he noticed us watching, he just smiled and casually strolled off, then randomly crouched down again a few steps later. Smooth criminal. We joined in too. Spent the whole morning picking wild greens, made several trips back and forth, ended up with maybe 15 pounds of it. Since it would spoil fast outside, I brought some dirt home and planted the ones with decent roots inside an upside-down plastic stool. Makeshift garden buys us a couple extra days. For lunch, I cooked turkey-flavored instant noodles, boiled some purslane too. Kept the seasoning light. Water's precious right now, and spicy food means drinking more of it. Even with the fire starter and the river nearby, water isn't exactly safe to fetch with crocodiles around. After lunch, I still felt a little hungry. Our bodies clearly want more protein and meat after 2 days of barely eating. Told my brother to nap. We'd fetch water and check the traps later. By the time we woke up, the worst heat of the day had passed, probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon based on the sky. Grabbed our backpacks and a big green water bucket and headed toward the south gate. That's when we ran into a shouting match. Security guards on one side, residents on the other, and standing right in the middle of the security group was Huang Tao, the suit guy from before. Turns out the security staff had been living in the guard dorms when everyone got transported here, so now they were treating those rooms and everything inside, including tools like fire axes, riot shields, and steel forks, as their own personal property. Some residents wanted to borrow tools and got refused, and things escalated fast. People in the crowd were grumbling that the guards had teamed up to hoard property-owned equipment that everyone had paid for through their maintenance fees. Huang Tao stepped in, hands raised, playing peacemaker. He gave this whole speech about how everyone's stuck in the same terrible situation. Crocodiles, poisonous snakes, giant man-eating birds, and infighting would only get people killed. One guy with a thick beard lost patience and demanded a straight answer. Hand the stuff over or not. Huang Tao calmly proposed a system. The tools belong to everyone, not one family. Set up a borrowing committee. One representative from each of the 10 buildings plus one from security, 11 total. Majority vote decides who gets what and when. Register your name, building number, what you're borrowing, and when you'll return it. Break it or lose it, work out compensation later. Then he added, since giant birds are apparently just casually snatching people now, the complex needs a night watch system too, organized by building, so everyone can sleep a little easier. His closing line was smooth as silk. We're all civilized people, said with a not-so-subtle warning to the bearded guy that the guards' families weren't around anymore, so they might be a little emotional. Translation, don't push us, we've got nothing left to lose. That shut the bearded guy up fast. He glared around at everyone watching the drama, grumbled, and finally said, fine, we'll talk later. My brother asked if we should join Huang Tao's little alliance. I said no. Less than a tenth of the complex was even involved, and Huang Tao didn't have the food or the reputation to actually hold people together once things got tough. My guess was he wasn't trying to unite the whole complex. He just wanted to use the property's supplies as bait to pull in his own crew. My brother, uncharacteristically serious, said he only trusts me anyway. I kicked him in the butt before he could get sappy about our parents and threatened to smack him if he kept whining. Then he spotted it. Our trap had caught something. A fat yellow field mouse, still struggling against the snare. Not the dirty city sewer kind. This one just ate roots and bugs, so it was clean meat. I handed the killing and gutting job to my brother. He panicked, but I told him if he can't handle a 2-pound rat, he'll never survive killing something 100 pounds. I knocked it out with a rock and dropped it in his bag. The second trap had been triggered too, but whatever got caught chewed through the rope and escaped, leaving just some grayish fur behind. Small animal, cautious. I reset the trap, and we moved on to gathering wild greens, though by now, half the complex was out doing the same thing, picking the area clean. At the river, fishing had turned into a whole scene. Everyone crowding onto the rocks, staying far from the water's edge otherwise, working in groups instead of alone. A crocodile got too close to one guy, and everyone started pelting it with rocks until it swam off. I filled our bucket carefully, checking for hidden crocodiles or snakes first. Back home, I let the water settle, then filtered it through a clean cloth. Time to deal with the mouse. Knocked it out completely, handed the gutting job back to my brother, and went to grab firewood. He tried to dodge by claiming we had no fire. Forgot I already had a fire starter for lunch. Not that he wanted to ask where it came from. That night, we roasted the mouse over the fire with some bread. Not much meat once you strip the bones and organs, but honestly, way better than expected. Tasted like quail with a stronger, gamier flavor than farm-raised meat. Right after we finished eating, someone started banging on our door. My brother grabbed a kitchen knife, I grabbed a stick. Turned out to be a neighbor from upstairs complaining about smoke smell, worried we'd start a fire. I told him through the door we had no gas, so cooking indoors was the only option. He suggested the hallway or rooftop instead, and stomped off angry when we ignored him. My brother pointed out plenty of other balconies had smoke too, so this guy was clearly just looking for trouble. I told him to ignore it and stick to the plan. The rooftop was out of the question with that man-eating bird around, and the hallway would just spread the smell to the whole building anyway. Then more knocking, this time at our neighbor's door across the hall. Same guy, asking to borrow cups. Through the peephole, I saw him and a second man lurking in a blind spot, hiding something in his hand. I signaled my brother to stay quiet. He got the message fast, and even mimed slitting a throat, but I shook my head. Not yet. We realized someone had probably been posted outside our own door too, waiting for us to open it. The two men left after getting no answer from the neighbor. I figured they were scouting, checking who lived where, who had grown men in the house, planning for a hit around dawn tomorrow when hallway light is dim and residents step out with their keys. Breaking in at night would be too loud, and waiting too many days would mean the food's already gone. Whatever they wanted, it wasn't worth waiting for. Told my brother to lock everything up tight and sleep light. I'd wake him early tomorrow. I forced myself to stay awake as the night deepened. The complex went dead silent, concrete towers standing cold against a forest that only got louder in the dark. Distant roars, wing beats echoing through the night sky. Eventually, right as I was drifting off despite myself, that same cold mechanical voice returned in my head. You have successfully survived day 2 in the wild. Gathered some wild greens. Collected a small amount of river water. Caught one small prey. Overall score, 8 points. Reward obtained. Building card, level 1 cellar granary X1, folding water filter bag X3. A golden screen appeared in front of me. It asked if I wanted to auto-claim the rewards. I said no, wanted to look first. After playing around with the menu a few times, I decided I might as well accept whatever this system was. No point fighting it when it was clearly working in my favor. I pulled out the building card. The moment it appeared in my hand, the room flickered strangely, and a small ball of light lit up in the center of my bedroom. A message explained that getting the card had activated something called resident status, unlocking a homestead system tied to my exact apartment, Building 8, Unit 2, Room 5-2. Apparently, before getting a card, we were all just survivors. Only survivors who found cards out in the wild or killed something strong enough to drop one could unlock resident status and start building. Wait, so this whole card system was completely separate from that daily scoring voice I'd been hearing? 2 totally different systems running at once? I realized the homestead system was probably something everyone in the complex could unlock. But that mysterious daily scoring voice seemed to be something else entirely, something extra, like I'd somehow gotten the cracked version of whatever was happening to everyone else. I used the level 1 cellar granary card. My whole 98 square meter apartment turned into a buildable map. I just needed to pick a 1 by 2 meter spot to build an underground food cellar. I chose the corner of my bedroom. The moment I activated it, light poured into the floor, rippling like water. The flat ground sank into a square opening, stone steps spiraling down into fog. When the light faded, a wooden cellar door with an iron ring sat where my floor used to be, completely out of place next to my modern apartment decor. I hesitated for a second, worried it might have built straight into my downstairs neighbor's bedroom. Pulled the ring open anyway. Stone stairs led 5 or 6 meters down into darkness, walls made of stone on both sides. Cold air hit me the moment I stepped in. At the bottom was a large room built from blue brick, bigger than my actual bedroom, definitely not connected to the building below, definitely not modern at all. At least 10 degrees colder than upstairs, dry, no mildew smell, and when I knocked on the wall, it sounded completely solid, like it was buried straight into the earth itself. This space clearly existed on top of reality, layered right over my apartment, which meant from now on, I had somewhere safe to store all our extra food. My brother spun around, rubbing his face like he couldn't believe it. Wait, so you're telling me you dug a whole cellar in your bedroom overnight? You believe me? Of course I believe you. I'd believe you if you told me you awakened memories from a past life, he said, nodding like crazy, practically begging me to say yes. I laughed and told him not to get too excited. I just got a card and unlocked something called a homestead system. I explained it simply and summoned the little light orb in front of him. This wasn't something unique to me either. Other people in the complex would probably unlock it too eventually. For now, it was just a secret nobody else knew about yet. My brother connected the dots fast. So this homestead thing is what caused us to get transported here in the first place. Then, knock, knock, knock. A sound came from the balcony. We both froze and looked toward it at the same time. My brother pointed upward with wide eyes. I figured it was probably the people from upstairs again. We grabbed our weapons and crept toward the balcony quietly. Moonlight covered everything in silver. The glass door was locked, the balcony empty, but something was tapping from the right side. Turned out to be a length of a clothes pole reaching over from the neighboring balcony, tapping against our railing. I unlocked the door and stepped out. Across the gap stood a woman in a slip dress, holding the other end of the pole. She lit up when she saw me and tossed over a small paper ball. I unfolded it. Neat handwriting warned me about the family upstairs. The young man had apparently done 10 years for robbery and just got released last year. She'd seen someone hiding outside our door in a blind spot earlier that evening, and she thought they were targeting us specifically. I wrote back, someone was hiding outside her door too, when they knocked on ours. She looked shocked when she read it. She wrote back quickly and threw the note over again, this time asking if she could come stay at our place. She said she was scared being alone and would help with anything. I found that request way too forward. We'd never even properly met. and my place had a hidden cellar and a magic light orb now. The last thing I needed was some stranger inside my walls. Being a woman didn't automatically make her harmless either. Good and bad people come in every gender. I waved her off without hesitation, even as she pressed her palms together, practically begging with her eyes. I just walked back inside and locked the balcony door behind me. Her expression soured the moment I left. She went back inside to two men waiting in her apartment, one with a scorpion tattoo on his hand, the other bald with his cheeks stuffed full of food. Scorpion guy asked if I'd agreed to let her stay over. She rolled her eyes. He said no. The guy on the bed couldn't believe it. How could any man turn down someone so pretty? The woman gritted her teeth, wondering out loud if I somehow knew about their setup. Scorpion guy dismissed that. I just moved in. No way I could know anything about them. She snapped at them for making this so complicated, putting her at risk alone with a stranger just to open a door at midnight. Scorpion guy pulled her close, reassuring her she could handle herself, and explained they'd been watching us bring home big bags of stuff and roasting meat at night. Clearly we'd found food. She mocked him, asking if he was just scared of a guy who looked strong. He got defensive, insisting he just wanted to keep things quiet so their reputation wouldn't suffer in this new world, for their own good, obviously. Things got intimate between them after that, with the bald guy, apparently the scorpion guy's little brother, awkwardly excusing himself to bed first, clearly uncomfortable with a look the woman gave him. Afterward, lying in bed, the woman seemed annoyed, pinching her partner and calling him useless. He grabbed her hand, told her to knock it off, and gave her new instructions. Tomorrow, get closer to the two young guys next door. Get a little friendly. Young guys like that, full of energy, surely couldn't resist. She protested, insulted at being used that way. He just held her close and called her his little treasure, telling her to behave. Eventually she gave in with a quiet sound of agreement. Next morning, my brother sat by the peephole rubbing his legs. No sound from outside. Nothing from across the hall either. Looks like they're not planning to leave today. I figured our neighbor across the hall was probably worried about the family upstairs. As for upstairs themselves, I wasn't totally sure yet, still just guessing at this point. My brother asked if we should head out. Some people from other buildings were already outside. I told him to wait. There were still people above us in our own stairwell, so we'd leave once someone else came down first, safety in numbers. We couldn't wait too long either, since our traps outside were sitting there waiting, and someone else might steal our catch if we were too slow. But leaving too early meant walking into an unknown hallway alone. I needed a permanent solution to this whole stairwell problem. Otherwise, it was going to keep cutting into our time every single day. I heard footsteps and laughing coming down the stairs, loud enough to hear from our floor. I opened the door and stepped out with my brother right behind me. Turned out to be two families heading down together, two middle-aged couples, each with a teenager, one boy and one girl. I asked the dad if they'd seen anyone in the stairwell. He said no, it was empty when they came down. Then he looked at me a little longer and realized we were the new neighbors from the 5th floor. He mentioned, almost as a warning, that the guy in 602 upstairs had a bad reputation, used to cause trouble drunk around the complex. Said he might have done time in prison too, though he wasn't totally sure about that part. His wife jumped in though. Yes, he'd been in prison, and apparently he and the woman in 501 had something going on. The husband looked shocked she knew that. She rolled her eyes and said she'd seen the 602 guy unlock 501's door with his own key one time while out grocery shopping. And 501 was supposedly a woman living alone. My brother's eyes went wide behind me. If the guy upstairs had a key to her place, they clearly knew each other. So why pretend to be strangers last night? Why would she warn me about him if they were working together? Unless it was all an act. My brother looked pretty pleased with himself for figuring that out, glancing over at me to see if I'd caught on too. I kept my face neutral. The dad, turned out his name was Deng, invited me to go fishing with him, said he had extra rods. Fishing enthusiast, apparently, with way more gear at home than he needed. His wife teased him for it, saying bad anglers always have the fanciest equipment. I agreed, figuring fishing was a skill worth learning either way. Since the wild veggies around the complex were basically picked clean now, my daily score would tank unless I found a new way to gather resources, and fishing near the gate was way safer than pushing deeper into the forest. Deng called over the other family's dad, old Lou, tall and thin, who was happy to tag along too. More people meant less chance of getting a good fishing spot stolen by others. But when we got to the south gate, we found a crowd standing on ladders, packed in tight. I pushed through and saw it. A massive crocodile lying completely still on the lobby floor. Dark, thick, bumpy hide. Just its size alone was enough to make people's knees shake. That thing's got to be 5 meters long. It could swallow a whole person. How do we get it to leave? Just kill it. It's not as fast on land. A delivery guy in the crowd spoke up, said he used to work at a zoo taking care of crocodiles. Everyone quieted down to listen. He explained this one looked like a saltwater crocodile, but with a bigger head, meaning an even stronger bite. Its weak points were the eyes, belly, and the back of the neck near the spine, but attacking it head-on was a terrible idea. It might be slower on land than in water, but it could still burst forward fast over short distances. He added that while its bite was insanely strong, the muscles used to open its mouth were much weaker, meaning if you could hold its jaws shut before it opened them, it couldn't fight back. Still, he strongly advised against attacking it at all. Better to just scare it off. Someone pushed back. If it was scared, why was it just lying there completely unbothered? This isn't Earth anymore, man. Normal crocodile rules don't apply here. Others agreed, pointing out that someone already got eaten by one of these things days ago. These crocodiles clearly saw us as prey now. One guy got fired up, insisting with so many people around, they shouldn't be scared of one crocodile. Kill it, cook it, split the meat. Old Lou teased Deng, saying that crocodile down there was bigger than any fish he'd ever caught. Deng laughed it off, joking he'd drive laps around the city if he ever caught something that size. His wife smacked his arm lightly, telling him to quit showing off and just back away if a crocodile ever got close in the water. He was the family's main provider, after all. He held her hand, reassuring her he knew. Their daughter, watching her parents be cheesy, just hugged her own arms awkwardly. Then, from the back of the crowd, someone came shoving through holding a huge, thick curtain, shouting for people to make way. Who's actually stepping up to fight this thing? Fair warning. Only the people who help get a share of the meat. No freeloaders. I recognized him immediately, the bearded guy from last night who'd been arguing with the security guards. Standing near him, I spotted Huang Tao and the property staff too. Get it? More people stepped up, holding sticks and clubs. I thought about what the homestead system said. Get cards by exploring dangerous zones, or by killing a strong creature in the area. I wasn't sure if this crocodile counted as strong enough, but on land, at least, it wasn't as fast or flexible as it would be in water. Let's go. I stepped forward with my spear, my brother right behind me with his stick. At least a dozen men had stepped up to fight. The bearded guy planned to throw his curtain over the crocodile's head to tangle it up. I suggested cutting holes in it first. That way when the crocodile struggled, its head or limbs would poke through the holes and tangle it even worse, like a net. The more it fought, the tighter it would get stuck. He loved the idea and immediately stabbed his own curtain full of holes with a boning knife, fast and precise enough to make me flinch a little. The problem was getting the crocodile's head into one of those holes in the first place. My brother suggested using sticks to guide its head. Everyone agreed, but nobody wanted to be the one holding the stick close enough to do it. The crocodile's legs alone were thicker than a person's waist, and it hadn't moved once, but nobody was fooled into thinking it was harmless. A security guard suggested just throwing the curtain and hoping for the best. Everyone agreed to try that first. My brother volunteered to go. I shut that down immediately, told him to stay back. He obeyed instantly. Old Deng stepped up instead, handing his fishing gear to his wife despite her worry, joking that if some young guy could volunteer, he wasn't going to just watch from the back. Plus, he'd never eaten crocodile meat before. Old Lou declined to join him, deciding to hang back. Deng's daughter poked my brother from behind, teasing him about looking scared for his older brother. My brother shot back that she was probably scared for her own dad too. She denied it, then admitted quietly that yeah, she was actually scared. 6 of us grabbed different corners of the curtain and stepped forward on the ladder. The closer we got to the crocodile, the heavier everyone's breathing became. My own hands were shaking a little too. Nothing prepares you for standing this close to something that big and dangerous. The crocodile's tail flicked. Then the security guard on the far left stumbled, nearly fell, and the sudden movement caught the crocodile's attention. Its cold, slitted eyes locked onto all 6 of us. The crowd behind us gasped. The crocodile exploded into motion, shockingly fast, straight toward the guard who'd stumbled. "Throw it now," the bearded guy shouted. We threw the curtain, but since it was still partly caught on the fallen guard, it didn't go far. The crocodile crashed straight into it anyway, its head and most of its body tangled. But its momentum didn't slow at all. It slammed into the guard, pinning his leg under its claws. He screamed for help. The bearded guy grabbed the back of his collar, trying to pull him free, but the crocodile's claws sank in like hooks, refusing to let its prey escape. Everyone started swinging sticks down on its back like rain. From the crowd, someone gasped, "That crocodile sounds like it's in pain." "That's not the crocodile screaming, genius. That's the guard." The crocodile roared in fury, its thick tail thrashing and scraping against the ground. I gripped my spear with both hands and drove it toward the crocodile's head, aiming for the eye through the curtain, but hit tough, leathery hide instead. The impact sent a jolt back through my arms, knocking me backward several steps. The crocodile lunged straight at me. "Move!" my brother roared from behind. A shadow leapt past me, swinging a thick wooden pole in a wide arc crack. The pole snapped clean in half, but the charging crocodile stopped dead in its tracks, stunned by the impact. "Get it!" A big guy with a fire axe rushed in from the side, bringing the axe down hard on the curtain covering its head. The crocodile howled, its tail whipping out in a blur. Thud! The axe guy didn't even get a chance to react. He just flew backward through the air like he'd been hit by a truck, 3 or 4 meters, and crashed to the ground in a crumpled heap, his leg bent at an angle no leg should bend. Dead silence fell over the crowd. Whatever excitement had been building a moment ago instantly drained away. The axe stayed stuck in the crocodile's skull, and the pain made it thrash even harder under the curtain, roaring with fury. "Don't go for the sides, hit it straight on," Huang Tao shouted. Someone brought a big iron shovel down on its head. Twice. The second hit landed right on the axe handle, making it shake its head in pain. I stepped in and stabbed my spear against its hide. The shock rattled straight up my arm. This skin was way too tough for anything but heavy weapons. The bearded guy grinned. "Doesn't matter how tough it is, it's still just an animal. Once it hurts enough, it'll run." Sure enough, the crocodile smashed sideways and finally ripped its head free through a hole in the curtain. It looked back at us once, then turned and bolted awkwardly toward the river. "Grab it!" We chased it down through the grass. On land, we were actually faster than it. 2 security guards flanked it with anti-riot forks, pinning its head between them. It instinctively opened its jaws wide, and I saw my chance. I drove my clothes pole spear straight down its throat. I don't know what exactly I hid inside, but I twisted and turned the pole anyway. The crocodile thrashed in the mud, clawing helplessly, while axes and clubs rained down on it from every side. It got weaker and weaker. Then it stopped moving entirely. I stared at it, half expecting a card to drop. 3 seconds. For seconds. Even after someone nearly chopped its head clean off with an axe, nothing happened. I guess this crocodile still didn't count as a strong life form for this zone. Still, it took over a dozen grown men, a curtain trick, and a full-on ambush with long weapons just to bring it down on land. "It's dead?" That was awesome. The crowd that had been watching from a distance slowly came forward. Someone worked up the courage to kick the body. Huang Tao pulled out a tape measure and announced it. 5 meters and 3 centimeters long. Everyone was impressed. The delivery guy who used to work at a zoo crouched down, amazed. A crocodile this size was rare even in the wild, let alone in captivity. Having worked with them before, he understood better than anyone just how dangerous something this big really was. I went to check on the security guard who'd been thrown earlier. People had dragged him to sit against a wall. His lower leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, blood everywhere, bone fragments poking through the skin, clearly shattered. If he'd been near a hospital, maybe he'd have had a chance. Out here, there wasn't much hope. A middle-aged man wearing glasses, apparently a doctor, examined him and stood up grimly. Without immediate surgery, his odds were slim. He was going into shock from blood loss and needed a transfusion right away, but there was no way to operate here. He asked if the guard had family nearby. Someone told him none of the security staff had family in the area. The doctor shook his head, saying even in the best case, the aftermath would be severe and there'd be no one to care for him afterward. An old man in the crowd sighed at the bad luck. An old woman added that if even a top hospital doctor like this one couldn't help, there really was no hope. Huang Tao pushed through the crowd, kneeling down and gently shaking the injured guard, calling his name. The guard's eyelids fluttered, lips moving weakly, but no real response came. The doctor explained that this wasn't sleep. It was his whole circulatory system shutting down, brain and organs starving for oxygen. A medical coma, not rest. The bearded guy walked over, looked down at him for a moment, then said quietly that it was a shame, but they should probably start dividing up the meat before it spoiled in this heat. Huang Tao agreed. The bearded guy turned to me, clearly impressed. You were pretty brave back there, shoving that spear straight down its throat. Name's Zheng Yuan, Building 3. We shook hands. I told him mine. Old Deng came over laughing, thrilled that my spear strike helped land the biggest fish of his life, a 5-meter crocodile, no less. I told him it was a team effort. I couldn't have taken it down alone. Someone brought over a scale and a big metal basin, and the whole group spent the rest of the morning cutting up the meat. A crowd gathered, some people trying to guilt their way into a free share without having helped at all. Zheng Yuan shut that down hard, cursing them out for showing up empty-handed to fight, but first in line to eat. Huang Tao lightened the mood, asking Zheng Yuan where he learned to cut meat so well. Turned out he used to be a butcher, pigs, specifically. He mentioned the crocodile's meat yield was low, only about half what you'd get from a pig of similar weight. In the end, the crocodile yielded just over 600 pounds of meat total. 16 people had fought it. The injured guard, who had no family with him, was quietly left out of the split by unspoken agreement. Zheng Yuan, who did the actual butchering, no small task for a creature weighing almost a ton, kept a little extra as payment for the labor. My brother and I split 80 pounds between us. The meat was pale white with light pink streaking through it, and the piece I got, from the tail, looked like an oversized, coarser version of chicken breast. After that, neither Old Deng nor I felt much like fishing anymore. 80 pounds of meat was enough to feed a family for a long stretch. Old Lu, meanwhile, looked practically envious, 40 pounds, when he'd spent an entire day fishing yesterday and only caught about 2 pounds total. Old Lu shuffled over to me after his wife pushed him forward, asking awkwardly if I could spare some meat since it would spoil fast in this heat anyway. I frowned. Old Deng stepped in before I could answer, telling Lu it wasn't fair to pressure someone who'd actually risked his life for that meat. Lu laughed it off, joking that his legs had gone numb at the worst time. Otherwise he would have helped too. Deng pointed at the guard still in shock nearby and reminded him it wasn't as easy as it looked. Lu got annoyed but pivoted anyway, asking Deng directly for some instead. Deng hesitated, then agreed to share a bit later. Then Wang Wan showed up, eyes locked on the meat in my bag. She tried to smooth things over, apologizing for how she acted before, offering to actually pay for some meat this time. Her husband jumped in too, playing the "we used to be co-workers" card, suggesting we team up for future hunts. I shut it down flat. No, we're not close. Walked off without another word. Her husband looked furious, muttering about how heartless I was, how I couldn't possibly eat all that meat before it spoiled anyway. As we walked up the stairs, the woman from the balcony last night came down to meet us, dressed casually, clearly excited to see me. She tried to hint at something from yesterday, without saying it outright in front of the others. Once everyone else left, she noticed the bag of meat in my hand and got even more eager, practically pressing herself against my arm, asking if she could come up to my place. I smiled. Sure, back home. Door closed. The second she opened her mouth, my brother grabbed her from behind, pinned her to the couch, and covered her mouth. I set down the meat and held my spear right up to her forehead. Chill. I told her once my brother let go, she'd better stay quiet. I'm a nervous guy, and nervous guys with spears sometimes stab first. She nodded frantically, terrified. I counted down, my brother released her mouth, and she gasped for air, eyes wet with tears. I led her into the bedroom and shut the door. Sat down, looked her straight in the eye. Have I ever wronged you? She shook her head fast. Then why are you trying to hurt me? She insisted she wasn't. I sighed, my expression turning cold. Stop lying to me. I grabbed her by the throat and pinned her against the wall. Reminded her there were no police out here anymore, and being a woman wouldn't stop me from doing what needed to be done if she kept playing dumb. Right as her eyes started rolling back, I let go. She collapsed into coughing, and I told her to keep it down. One more time. Who put you up to this? She broke completely, spilling everything. A man named Jun forced her into it. She claimed she never wanted to, that she was just a woman alone with no way to resist two grown men. My brother looked shaken hearing all this. If it had actually worked, two strangers sneaking into our apartment at midnight while we slept. He didn't need me to spell out what would have happened. He glanced at me with real respect, remembering how I'd quietly told him to grab her the second we got inside. Still, some small part of him, even on day 3 in this new world, wasn't fully used to how far I was willing to go if she'd kept lying. I asked her to confirm. She was supposed to sneak into our place, then unlock the door at night to let the men in. She agreed, painting herself as an unwilling victim the whole time. She introduced herself, Wang Xiaoli. The scorpion tattoo guy was Xie Jun. The slower one was his cousin Xie Guang, nicknamed Big Strong. Xie Jun apparently used to run loan shark collections, throwing chicken blood and feces on people's doors, breaking legs when debts went unpaid. Xie Guang had his own record too, mostly assault charges, and apparently had assaulted her once when his cousin wasn't around. A whole nest of garbage people. I wasn't interested in the backstory though. I cut her off and asked the only thing that mattered. Did they have weapons, especially guns? No guns, she said, just machetes, the long kind, about half a meter. I asked if they'd told her what they planned to do to me and my brother once inside. She hesitated, clearly not wanting to say it. I answered for her. Kill us both. Obviously, tie up loose ends, especially somewhere with no law to answer to. She looked down, ashamed. I asked if they had any signal or code word planned. She said no. Just knock on the door quietly at night. That was it. I sighed dramatically, telling my brother I'd been too soft this whole time, only thinking about hunting for food honestly instead of just taking what I wanted from other people. Like Xie Jun clearly had the right idea. My brother agreed completely, saying that's exactly the problem with good people like us. Always getting taken advantage of. She just stared at us, stunned. Good people? If I hadn't confessed everything just now, I'd probably be dead. I patted her head and told her the plan. Tonight, she'd follow through exactly as promised, lure the two men over. If she tried anything, warning them, tipping them off, they might survive, but she definitely wouldn't cooperate, and I'd let her live. She nodded rapidly, gripping the hem of her shirt. At 10 that night, I set a rope snare just inside the bedroom door, tied off to the bed frame. Thick clouds covered the moon, perfect timing. I signaled to Wang Xiaoli. She quietly opened the door, crossed the hall, and knocked 4 times on the door across from ours. Knock, 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 knock. The door across the hall cracked open. Xie Jun's head poked out, eyes scanning our place before landing on Wang Xiaoli. He leaned in and whispered that she'd done well, promising a reward later. Then he waved his cousin over. Big Strong handed him one of the 2 machetes he was carrying. Xie Jun paused at our door, confused about the drawn curtains. Wang Xiaoli lied smoothly, said we always closed them at night, worried about birds hitting the glass, and she didn't want to risk waking us by opening them too loudly. He told her to crack them open a little instead, quietly. She did. Moonlight spilled into the living room. Xie Jun scanned the open space carefully, nowhere to hide, then waved his cousin forward. He pointed toward the bedroom I'd set up as bait. Big Strong went first. He turned the handle and pushed the door open. Through the gap, he could just make out a lumpy shape under the blankets and the steady sound of snoring. He stepped inside. His foot caught on something. Snap! The snare tightened around his leg. He crashed forward hard. The closet door burst open. I lunged out with my spear, stabbing into his upper body again and again in the dark, not caring exactly where it landed. He screamed. I turned my spear toward the narrow doorway right after. Xie Jun froze at the sound of his cousin's scream, then realized instantly they'd been set up. That traitor Wang Xiaoli. He spun around just in time to hear another door slam shut and lock behind him. She'd locked herself away in a different room. Cursing, he tried to move forward, but my spear came at him first. Space was tight, nowhere to dodge. It caught his shoulder. He hissed in pain. Before he could recover, the snoring from the bed stopped. My brother sprang up and brought a knife down on the man on the floor. First hit, his hand shook a little. Second hit, adrenaline took over completely. Blood sprayed across his face. He jumped back to stand beside me, both of us staring down Xie Jun. But my brother's eyes caught the dropped machete on the floor. Xie Jun looked at his groaning cousin, face twisted with panic, and backed away slowly, machete raised. All right, I lose this round. No need to fight to the death here. I've still got a blade. And if you push me, I'm taking at least one of you with me. I wasn't interested in talking. I drove my spear forward. We'd already gone this far. No point letting him walk away to come back later. He swung his blade, knocking my spear aside, but the tip still caught his shoulder. He grabbed the pole with his free hand to stop me pulling back, and as we struggled, another blade came slashing toward my face. I blocked on instinct. Clang! The impact rattled my whole arm. My brother laughed, grabbing the second dropped machete and swinging it down on Xie Jun's head over and over, reckless, fearless, like he was chopping wood. Xie Jun's arms went numb from blocking hit after hit, barely holding on. Then his grip slipped. He let go of my spear to save his hand. I didn't waste the opening, drove the spear straight into his eye. He screamed, stumbled back, hit the wall, and slid down slowly. I twisted the spear once more before pulling it free. His hand finally released the machete, letting it clatter to the floor. It was over. A strange, heavy feeling washed over me. My heart was pounding hard against my ribs. I knocked on the locked bedroom door. It's done. You can come out now. No response at first. She was probably terrified. Come out. I won't ask twice. The lock clicked. Wang Xiaoli opened the door, head down, shaking, eyes flicking nervously to the two bodies on the floor. In her mind, these two men had always been untouchable, and now, whoever could kill them clearly outranked them completely. My brother, still wired from the fight, glanced at me. Bro, let her go, I said. I keep my word. She held up her end, so I'll hold up mine. He blinked, then nodded, and barked at her to get lost. She bolted without looking back, terrified we might change our minds. Outside on the stairs, old Deng came down carrying something, drawn by the noise, cautiously peering into our apartment. Wang Xiaoli nearly crashed into him on her way out, and screamed in fright. My brother and I dragged the bodies out just as Deng spotted us. I explained calmly. These two had heard about our meet and tried to break in for a robbery. Self-defense. Given all the screaming a moment ago, there was no hiding what happened anyway, so I didn't bother trying. Deng looked shaken at first, but quickly understood. Things were different now. He rolled up his sleeves and offered to help carry the bodies. With his help, we got them downstairs fast. Digging a proper grave for two people would have taken way too much energy we didn't have, and honestly, these two weren't worth the effort. We just dumped them outside the south gate instead, too dangerous to go any further at night. Afterward, Deng wiped his hands and mentioned his family planned to smoke their meat tomorrow, asked if we wanted to join. I agreed happily, and we settled on meeting at 7, a little later than his usual 6 given tonight's excitement. Back home, the apartment still smelled faintly of blood. I wiped down the floor with an old shirt. Midnight arrived. You have successfully survived day 3 in the wild. Worked with a team to hunt a crocodile and received a share of raw meat. People can be more dangerous than beasts. Someone tried to attack you, and you turned the tables using a trap. Overall score, 32 points. Reward obtained. Expansion card. Blank expansion card, small. X1, Mountain Plant Guide, torn pages. X2, Building card. Level 1 Animal Pin X1, Salt X3. I pulled out my 2 reward cards. One was blank, smooth like jade. The other was thin gray metal with a cage drawing on it, rough like sandpaper. The blank one could expand any part of my home into a new 10 by 10 meter space, folded away like the cellar, invisible from outside. The other could turn a 4 by 5 meter area into an animal pen. My bathroom was useless now anyway with no water, so I picked the far wall near the window to use the blank card. Light flashed. A huge empty stone area opened up where the bathroom window used to be. From outside, that window on the 5th floor of Building 8 just vanished completely, leaving nothing but blank wall. Inside, the new space was solid rock, no dirt, no plants, like a slab cut straight out of some massive stone somewhere else and dropped in here. No moon visible, but the light, temperature, and humidity matched outside perfectly. A hazy fog sealed off the edges like an invisible wall. Ceiling height matched the rest of my apartment. I picked a spot on the left and used the animal pen card. Light wrapped around the area, and when it faded, a massive wire cage stood there, anchored into the ground with thick wooden posts, split into smaller sections inside, complete with feeding troughs and water bowls. I called up the little light orb. My home now showed 198 square meters, 2.8-meter ceilings, with a cellar and an animal pen listed as buildings. I called my brother over. He opened the bathroom door and just stood there, stunned. Bro, what I asked this? I told him with a straight face I dug it out myself last night. Couldn't sleep. He rolled his eyes. Sure, I believe you. I believe everything you say now. I'm done asking questions. Deep down, though, he'd already connected the dots. This had to be tied to those mysterious cards, probably from the crocodile kill. I explained the plan. Next time, we caught a field mouse. We could keep it in the pen, feed it roots and bugs. And if we got a breeding pair, we'd have a steady supply of meat before long. My brother got excited, remembering his old roommate's hamsters. One male, one female. And within a month, they'd had over a dozen babies, then got pregnant again almost immediately after giving birth. Apparently, hamsters can breed constantly, all year round. He figured field mice probably weren't much different. Honestly, the meat was secondary for me. What really mattered was the daily score. I doubted I'd find a crocodile to kill every single day, or run into scumbags like Xie Jun regularly either. Keeping livestock seemed like a reliable way to keep earning points even on quiet days. With tomorrow's smoking session planned, I spent that evening prepping, cut the crocodile meat into thin strips, and rubbed them down with salt and pepper. My brother helped. Took us a full hour to finish all 80 pounds. Lucky we'd gotten 3 bags of salt as a reward, or we wouldn't have had enough. Early the next morning, I grabbed the marinated meat and headed out to meet old Deng's family. His wife kept glancing at me on the way down. I asked if something was on my face. She said no, quickly looking away. Deng explained she was probably still thinking about last night. Knowing his wife after decades of marriage, he spoke up for me, saying nobody could blame me for what happened. Trash like the Xie brothers needed dealing with sooner or later, and honestly, it was a good thing it happened before they targeted someone else in the building. His wife shot him a look, insisting she hadn't said anything, just curious whether we'd been scared doing something like that for the first time. I laughed it off. Of course I was scared. Terrified, honestly. But when someone comes after you like that, you can't just roll over. My brother tried to remember if I'd actually looked scared in the moment. He couldn't recall it clearly. Their daughter asked what happened. Her mom brushed her off, telling her to stay out of grown-up conversations. The daughter scoffed, pointing out she was 17, not a little kid, and it wasn't like anyone was hiding that someone died. She mentioned being jolted awake by all the noise last night, and immediately knowing something big had happened. If anything, she seemed impressed rather than bothered. Way more interesting than any guy back at her old school. As we headed out through the south gate, I glanced toward where we dumped the bodies last night. My eyebrows shot up. Both bodies were gone. 2 grown men, just vanished. I walked over, crouched down in the grass. The plants nearby showed clear signs of being dragged and crushed, with a faint trail of blood leading away. Old Deng walked over, and his face changed when he saw the empty spot where the bodies used to be. Something dragged them off? This was the spot, right? Yeah, this is it. Fast work. Just a few hours, and they're already gone. Whatever did this must be big. Look at these drag marks. He followed the trail with his eyes. Looks like it heads toward the river. I figured it was probably a crocodile. He wasn't sure crocodiles had that good a sense of smell, but I told him better safe than sorry either way. Both families searched around, but couldn't find a good spot to smoke. Meat. Too far from the complex felt unsafe. Too close meant too many eyes watching. And smoking meat out in the open with everyone scavenging for food nearby was just asking for trouble. We ended up carrying wetwood up to the rooftop instead. Risky with that giant bird still out there, but manageable if we stayed careful. While we set up, I checked my 2 snares. Both had been triggered. One just had fur from whatever escaped again. The other had been torn apart completely on purpose. My brother got furious when he saw it, ranting about people destroying stuff out of spite for no reason. I just pulled both traps and decided I'd set new ones farther out later. The rooftop wasn't locked, still had all its old laundry lines strung up. Looking at those lines gave me an idea. I grabbed a big bedsheet from home, draped it over the lines, and clipped the corners down, making a simple sunshade. Since that bird hunts by looking down from above, covering ourselves like this should keep us hidden, unless it somehow saw heat instead of shapes. Took all morning, but I finally finished drying my meat strips. Pulled one off, chewed it slowly, cooked through, tough and dry on the outside like wood, but still a little moist, and salty sweet once you got into it. I handed one to my brother to try. Tell me if this counts as properly smoked. He chewed, swallowed, and said, tastes great. I kicked him. I asked if it's done, not how it tastes. He complained he had no idea, never smoked meat before in his life. Fair point. Figured I needed an actual expert's opinion. I brought a small bag of it downstairs, knocked on the door on the second floor. Who is it? It's me, from the 5th floor. Wanted to ask you something, I said politely. The door opened. The old woman let me in, told me to sit. I handed over the jerky, asked if I'd done it right and how long it would last. She smelled it first, then snapped a piece open to check the inside before tasting a small bite. I told her the whole bag was hers to keep. She refused, saying she had plenty of food already. After chewing slowly, she said the taste was fine and the smoking wasn't bad, but it would still mold if left out since the inside wasn't fully dried yet. Back in her hometown, she explained, meat needed to hang somewhere cool and airy afterward, or over a stove where cooking smoke kept drying it out daily. Properly done, it should snap clean like a stick all the way through, and stored right, it could last a year or two easily. I asked if a cellar would work for the drying process. She said yes, as long as it had airflow. The underground parking garage would have worked, except people had spotted snakes and rats down there recently, so best to avoid it. That got me thinking about my own food cellar, cooler than outside, and it had felt like there was some airflow when I was down there before. I thanked her and stood to leave. She grabbed a hanging string of sausages off the wall, insisting I take them since she'd made too many before the world changed. I tried to decline, telling her I had plenty of meat already, but she just shoved a bag of them into my hands anyway, saying she couldn't finish them all herself. Back on the roof, I moved all the smoked meat strips down into the cellar, hung them on a makeshift rack. By the time I finished, it was already past noon. Cooked up 4 packs of noodles, tossed in some smoked meat and wild greens, and my brother and I ate well. Afterward, lying on a mat on the floor, I pulled out the torn plant guide pages from last night's reward. Just 2 pages really, front and back, for plants total, each with a small picture. Moonlight moss, gray sweet potato, stone mushroom, yellow leaf daisy. 2 edible, 2 not. Moonlight moss grows in damp forest spots on tree roots. Edible, said to be good for eyesight over time, but turns bitter if exposed to direct sunlight. Gray sweet potato, also called mud potato, grows underground in swampy areas. Leaves are mildly toxic and inedible, but the root itself is edible, bland taste, very filling, and it produces 2 harvests a year. Stone mushroom grows in caves, looks plump and appetizing, but has a rubbery texture that's basically impossible to chew, and it's poisonous. Yellow leaf daisy is mildly toxic, causes dizziness and diarrhea if eaten, though the petals can be used for dye. The other 2 plants would be hard to track down, so my attention went straight to the mud potato. Moonlight moss required searching at night, and the other 2 were off the table entirely. Mud potato grew in muddy ground, and there was a mud flat right by the river. If I got lucky, I could dig some up and replant them at home. Good timing too, since I already had plans to go fishing with old Dang that afternoon. Figured I'd keep an eye out along the way. That afternoon, I headed to the river with old Dang's family. I asked where his neighbor was. He laughed awkwardly. His wife wasn't so polite about it. She went off about how she'd warned him not to trust old Lou, calling him a mooch who took 2 pounds of meat and still wanted more, acting like a stray dog instead of a grown man. I understood her frustration. Old Lou had made his ass feel entitled, even though we'd barely met. I teased Dang about whether he'd lent or just given away his meat. His wife scoffed. Lent, sure. Dang just laughed it off, calling everyone neighbors. At the river, his smile disappeared. The big flat rock he usually fished from with old Lou was now packed with people. Lou, plus 2 strangers with fishing rods. His wife shot him a look. Some good neighbor he turned out to be. Dang mumbled something about missing the morning window, then quickly changed the subject, leading us to another spot he knew instead. We found a small rise a few meters above the water, steep enough that a crocodile would need to circle around through the shallow slopes to reach us. Bushes and small trees behind us, leading back toward the complex wall. Dang poked around with a stick first to check for snakes, then showed us how to dig up worms from the soft black soil, big, fat ones. His daughter teased him about being better at digging worms than actually fishing. He got defensive, Bringing up the 5-meter crocodile like that somehow counted toward his fishing record. Everyone laughed. Old Lou's kid, digging nearby, spotted Deng's daughter and almost came over to say hi, but hesitated, turned red, and ran back to his dad instead, whispering something. Lou glanced over at us laughing together and scoffed before turning away again. Deng baited my hook and adjusted the float, asking if I'd fished much before. Honestly, the only time I remembered was taking my brother to catch goldfish at a park as a kid. Not much experience beyond that. He told me not to worry. I'd get the hang of it with practice. Barely a few minutes in, my float started bobbing. I yanked it up on instinct and felt resistance immediately. Got one. Deng rushed over, eyes locked on the water. A silver fish broke the surface, scales flashing in the sunlight, still thrashing wildly once I pulled it onto the bank. Deng guessed it weighed a few pounds. That was just the start. Within half an hour I'd caught several more. Meanwhile, Deng's bucket stayed empty, and he started grumbling about the sun being too bright today, as an excuse. Then his wife pointed at the water. A crocodile, smaller than the one we'd killed at the gate, but still plenty intimidating, cruised past like it owned the place. After days of watching us on land, it clearly didn't see us as much of a threat anymore. It patrolled the area like checking its territory, and once it passed, every fish in the water shut their mouths completely. I didn't catch a single thing the rest of the afternoon. By evening, a cool breeze picked up over the water. Suddenly my rod jerked hard, bending into a sharp curve, way more force than anything before. I gripped the rod tight with both hands. That's a big one. Deng rushed to help, telling me to take it slow, let it tire itself out, and whatever happened, don't let it drag the line into the tree roots along the bank. We wrestled with it for almost 10 minutes before it finally started losing steam. The commotion drew a small crowd of other anglers over to watch. When we finally hauled it out, an old man in the crowd gasped, a carp nearly a meter long. Deng helped lift the bucket to catch it, practically drooling with envy, joking that this must be some kind of beginner's luck, landing something this big on my very first real day fishing. The fish alone nearly filled his whole bucket. Guessed it weighed around 10 pounds. Feeling bad that Deng had only caught one small carp all afternoon, I tossed a few of my smaller fish into his bucket and handed back his rod. He looked embarrassed taking the extra fish, but flat out refused to take the rod back, insisting he had more at home and I should keep using it. Back at the complex, an old man and woman were sitting at the Southgate lobby desk, calling out to everyone passing by. A full residence meeting was happening tonight at 7, and every household should try to send a representative if possible. A residence meeting? Who's organizing it? An old man on the ladder laughed and said it was the property staff organizing it. Really just the security guards and Huang Tao from Building 7, wanting everyone to figure out food together. My brother scoffed. If you're hungry, go find food. That's just instinct. There's a whole forest out there. You'd have to be pretty lazy to starve, someone behind us agreed. Exactly right. Big forest out there. As long as you're willing to work, you won't starve. I turned around and saw a rough-looking group walking in through the gate, backpacks stuffed full, carrying homemade weapons, dressed head to toe for the outdoors. Fully geared up. The one talking was a guy in glasses, early 30s. He noticed the fish in my bucket and smiled, walking over to a quiet corner. Hey, want to trade for those fish? First time anyone had offered a straight trade. I asked what he had in mind. He unzipped his backpack and showed me two fluffy little animals curled up together. Rabbits. Wild rabbits? I asked. He nodded, smiling. One male, one female. You know how fast rabbits breed. They eat grass, easy to keep. Take these home, raise them a while, and you'll have a steady meat supply. I shook my head. Good long term, but rabbits take a couple months to breed and give birth. I'd starve waiting that long. He corrected me. Actually, only about 6 weeks from mating to birth. Still a month and a half, plus daily grass gathering, I said. He looked a little disappointed, said he just really missed eating fish. Started to walk off politely. I stopped him and asked how much the rabbits weighed. He admitted he never actually weighed them, but guessed around 3 or 4 pounds each, 7 pounds total. Thinking it over, the carp was heavier, but rabbit meat is red meat, more calories than fish. And I already had the animal pen built. 2 rabbits were worth more to me long-term than 1 fish, especially since fishing wasn't turning out to be that hard anyway. Deal. Mind if I ask you a few questions first? He agreed happily. I asked where he caught the rabbits. He said west of the south gate, about 30 minutes walking, there's a grassy hillside area loaded with rabbits. He explained that wild rabbits are creatures of habit. They were down fixed paths through the grass called rabbit trails, and those are the best spots to set traps. Rabbits also like following natural borders like stone walls, hedges, or forest edges, so that's where to look. They're most active at dawn and dusk. Since their sense of smell is sharp, he suggested wearing gloves when setting traps to avoid leaving scent behind. I made mental notes. None of this was covered in that torn trap diagram I had. Curious, I asked what he did for work. He said he was a veterinarian. Made sense, given how much he knew about catching animals. He introduced himself as Wang Jun, Building 1. Asked if my brother was with me. I introduced us both. He mentioned he used to run an outdoor hiking group, had real survival experience, and he and his crew had been exploring the area west of the complex the last couple days. Said if we were interested, we could look him up. He lived on the 8th floor, Unit 1. I didn't shut the door on it. Sure. And if you catch more animals like these rabbits, come find me too. Building 8, Unit 2, 5th floor. He agreed easily. After he left, my brother scratched his head. Bro, everyone keeps wanting to recruit us. I glanced at him. Because you look simple-minded and strong. People like that type. He looked suspicious, sensing an insult somewhere in there. Wait, are you making fun of me? Not at all. Why would I? You're so smart. Yeah, right? I saw you smirk. We bickered the whole way home. The rabbits were one white, one gray. Gray was male, white female. Once we dropped them in the pen, they went from shaking with fear to hopping around calmly within minutes. That pen clearly had some kind of magic to it, same as the cellar that somehow stayed ventilated despite being sealed underground. These buildings all seemed to have a bit of strange power built into them. My brother crouched by the cage. What do we even feed them? What do rabbits eat? I asked back. Carrots. Where would we get carrots? Cabbage. You're the cabbage. We need our wild greens for ourselves. Don't waste them on the rabbits. Got it. I figured I'd ask Wang Jun for proper advice later, since he was the vet. Even though rabbits could probably eat just about any grass, I'd heard online they could be surprisingly fragile, stressing out and dying easily if you didn't handle them right. Hoped the pen's strange magic would help keep them calm. That evening after dinner, we headed to the courtyard in the middle of the complex. Used to be a kids' play area with a little fountain, now dead and empty of children. Someone had dragged a table into the middle, with the security guards in white uniforms standing around it. A crowd had already packed and tied around it. We got there late and couldn't push through, so we climbed a nearby tree instead. Every balcony in the surrounding buildings was packed with people too, probably the biggest gathering since we all got transported here. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Who's talking? Get on with it. Come on, say what you need to say." Huang Tao climbed up onto the table, stood tall, raised both hands to get everyone's attention, then lifted a megaphone to his mouth. Hey, can everyone hear me? Huang Tao's opening line quieted the crowd fast. How much food does everyone actually have left? Sitting up in the tree, I was curious what he was building toward. What happens when it runs out? He pressed. You gonna start robbing your neighbors? Everyone's already running low. We can't just live off what's left. He raised his voice through the megaphone. We've got over 2,000 people in this complex. Picking wild greens and small animals will never feed that many mouths. Sounded oddly familiar, somehow. He kept going, fired up now. There's a river right below us. People have always lived off the land and the water near them. We need to claim that river. I'm asking everyone. Let's unite and clear out the crocodiles. This is a war between us and them for territory. The crowd stayed quiet. Disappointment flashed across his face. Then a loud voice called out from the crowd. So how do we actually do it? Huang Tao turned toward the sound and spotted me sitting in the tree. My brother whispered, Bro, why are you shilling for this guy? I shook my head. Not shilling. Clearing the crocodiles benefited us too. I could fish without worrying about getting ambushed from behind. What I didn't say out loud. Killing crocodiles boosted my daily score, and once they were cleared, the whole river became free real estate for setting traps and cages along the banks. Huang Tao laid out his plan, 20-person teams, easily a dozen or more teams given our numbers. Crocodiles were dangerous, sure, but not unkillable. We'd already proven that yesterday. On land, they lost most of their advantage, and humans had brains, tools, and traps working in their favor. Each crocodile meant dozens of pounds of meat per person, enough to feed a family for a week. Better to hunt now while everyone still had strength, instead of waiting until they were too weak and hungry to fight. Someone on a balcony shouted, asking how the meat split would work if people slacked off during the hunt. Huang Tao answered firmly. He hated freeloaders, said everyone in a team would clearly see who contributed and who didn't, and teams could vote to kick out anyone caught slacking. An old man brought up yesterday's injured guard, pointing out how dangerous these hunts actually were. Huang Tao acknowledged it patiently, said they'd learned from that mistake and would prioritize safety this time, though nothing's ever completely risk-free. People kept throwing questions, some genuine, some just looking to pick a fight. Huang Tao handled all of them calmly. Finally, running low on megaphone battery, he wrapped up. Anyone interested in hunting crocodiles could register with him, and he'd try to build teams based on building location and preference. Even pre-formed groups were welcome to register, and he'd share everything he'd learned for free. From below, Zheng Yuan's voice called up. "Qin, you in for tomorrow?" I looked down at an unfamiliar face for a second before it clicked. Zheng Yuan had shaved his beard. He laughed, explaining it was just too much upkeep every day. Having already worked with him once, I agreed easily. I asked how many people he'd lined up. He mentioned Huang Tao, a few security guards, and a fitness trainer neighbor from his building, 7 total so far. I offered myself, my brother, and old Deng from the crocodile hunt, bringing it to 10. Zheng Yuan said the rest could come from Huang Tao's sign-up list, since plenty of people were likely registering already. I teased him a bit for suddenly being on friendly terms with old Huang. He admitted Huang Tao was a bit calculating, but reliable enough. After that, my brother and I headed over to Building 1, Unit 1, 8th floor. Climbing all those stairs without an elevator left me sweating and my brother rubbing his legs. Only 2 units on that floor, one with a shoe rack and New Year couplets on the door, the other completely quiet, no sign of life. I knocked on the lived-in one. A woman's voice answered. I explained who I was, and she called out that someone from Building 8 was here to see him. Wang Jun opened the door and welcomed us in, introducing his wife, Lin Yi, friendly, sharp-eyed, hair pulled into a bun. She greeted us warmly. I apologized for the late visit, explaining I wanted advice on raising the rabbits properly since it was my first time and I wasn't sure what to feed them. Wang Jun laid it out clearly. First, avoid watery vegetables like cabbage, lettuce, or carrots. They mess with a rabbit's gut bacteria and can cause deadly diarrhea or bloating. Second, wild. Rabbits need high-fiber roughage as their main diet. Hay, leaves, bark, with just a small amount of fresh vegetables on the side, plus 250 to 500 milliliters of water daily. He shared a bunch more tips after that, too. I walked away feeling like I'd actually learned something useful. Knowledge really is the most valuable thing out here. I asked if he was joining tomorrow's crocodile hunt. He shook his head, said he'd sit this one out, but warned me to stay careful. Crocodiles might tire fast, but their burst of speed and power was still dangerous. He mentioned that on Earth, crocodiles were cold-blooded and sluggish in cooler temperatures. But since these weren't Earth crocodiles, that knowledge might not fully apply here. Still, he wished me good luck for tomorrow. I caught 5 fish today, the biggest one over 80 centimeters long, a beautiful silver carp weighing more than 10 kilos. I also traded for a pair of young mountain rabbits to raise. My rewards this time, a level 1 spring card and a solar flashlight. I stared at the spring card for a while. A spring, inside my apartment, on the 5th floor? After building a cellar and an animal pen, I guess creating a spring out of nowhere wasn't that unbelievable anymore. The card needed a 3 by 3 meter circular area. My living room was out, my bedroom and my brother's were both full of furniture we needed, so the only real option was the new expanded space next to the animal pen. I made sure to place it far from the pen itself, in case future animals dirted the water. I activated it in the corner across from the pen. Light poured into the ground, and when it faded, a rough stone basin about a meter high had risen up, smooth on the inside like a hand-carved bowl. But where was the water? I pulled out the flashlight too, testing it. Heavier than expected, with a solar panel built into the handle for brightness settings and a battery percentage display. On the highest setting, it lit up the whole apartment like daylight. I climbed up to check the spring basin. At the very bottom, I could just make out a thin layer of moisture seeping slowly from the rock. Barely enough to wet a fingertip. Level 1 spring, I reminded myself. Didn't expect much. But this was almost nothing. I decided to just wait and check again in the morning. Next day, there was a small puddle at the bottom, maybe half a finger deep, roughly 7 or 8 liters. At that rate, probably 20 to 30 liters a day. I scooped some up and tasted it, sweet, clean water. If we rationed carefully, this alone could cover our household needs, saving us the trip hauling water up from the river and up 5 flights of stairs every time. If we'd landed somewhere drier, like a desert, this spring would have been priceless. I'd told old Deng about tomorrow's crocodile hunt the night before, so he showed up bright and early, fully armored. Motorcycle helmet, thick winter coat, magazines taped around his legs like shin guards, and a sharpened wooden stick in hand. Clearly still shaken from what happened a few days ago. He looked at me and my brother in our regular long sleeves, confused we weren't wearing more protection. I explained we didn't want anything slowing us down. My brother added we just needed to avoid direct contact with the crocodile. More people this time meant more safety margin anyway. Old Deng didn't fully get it but respected our choice, following along cheerfully, bragging the whole way that his wife had wrapped his legs using his daughter's old elementary school textbooks. At the gate, the crowd had split into 7 or 8 teams already. Zheng Yuan waved us over and introduced his downstairs neighbor, Zhou Sheng, a compact, muscular guy with a shaved head and an 8-tooth grin. Zhou Sheng shook my hand, saying Zheng Yuan had been talking me up the whole way down, crediting my spear strike as the turning point in the last crocodile fight. We chatted while waiting, the morning heat slowly rising. Zheng Yuan got impatient. Other teams had already left. He walked over to talk with Huang Tao quietly, then came back saying someone from Building 7 was running late, maybe overslept. Then someone ran up to Huang Tao and whispered something. His face changed. He took a deep breath, clapped his hands, and announced everyone was ready to head out. Someone pointed out we were only 19, not 20. Huang Tao admitted, a little awkwardly, that one guy's family had gotten cold feet about the danger and pulled him out last minute. But 19 versus 20 wasn't a big deal, and it just meant one less share of meat to split. The group erupted. People demanded to know who bailed, annoyed they hadn't said something sooner instead of wasting everyone's morning. Someone guessed it was the guy from Building 4, Unit 2, Apartment 302. Apparently he and his wife had gone around the night before warning people how dangerous the hunt was, subtly trying to talk others out of going too, probably to justify backing out himself without looking like the only coward. My brother grumbled that the guy should have just said something earlier instead of wasting everyone's time. Huang Tao calmed the group down and started handing out gear, including one large net that looked oddly familiar. Wait, isn't that the climbing net from the kids' playground? Yeah, that explains where all those ropes disappeared to. Sneaky. Knew something was missing from the play area. Before we even reached the river, I could hear splashing chaos already going on. Teams were spread out along the bank, some already in the middle of it, others still watching and learning. One team had lassoed a crocodile using bedsheets and curtains tied into rope, secured it to a tree, and were now poking it endlessly with long weapons while it thrashed and roared. Another group had dug a shallow pit trap, but it wasn't deep enough, and the crocodile bolted back into the river in a panic, sending water everywhere. Out on the water, several crocodiles floated silently, cold eyes watching everything. One young guy suggested moving further downstream. Too close to the chaos, and the crocodiles wouldn't fall for anything. Huang Tao agreed and introduced Zhang Zhan, another former zoo worker who'd cared for crocodiles before. Zhang Zhan explained that crocodiles are basically cold, instinct-driven machines. No complicated emotions, no real fear. Everything tied purely to survival and reproduction. Feed one, and it learns proximity means food. Once fed, it just lies there digesting, harmless unless it feels threatened. Watching another crocodile get killed doesn't scare them, but it does make them wary. They start associating humans specifically with danger. He pointed at the crocodiles floating offshore, watching us. They were evaluating the threat level of this exact spot and this specific group of people, which meant they'd be more cautious here going forward. I asked if that meant they'd stop coming up entirely. He said no. Short term, at this exact location using the same method, they wouldn't fall for it again. But move somewhere new, and the same bait would work just fine. Crocodiles don't understand. Humans are hunting us with traps, as a concept, just food, threat, and territory. We walked over 100 meters downstream. Huang Tao pulled out leftover crocodile guts from the last kill, tied to a rope, and tossed them into the shallow water. Blood spread through the current. A dark shape crept closer beneath the surface. Zheng Yuan gave a signal. The guys behind us yanked the rope, dragging the guts back out onto the muddy bank, leaving a foul trail. The shadow paused, motionless in the water. My brother, crouched beside Zhang Zhun, whispered asking if it would actually come up. Zhang Zhun said definitely. Organ meat is a crocodile's favorite, and seeing it get dragged away triggers the same instinct as a cat chasing a toy. It'll assume something's stealing its food. Right on cue, the water exploded. A massive dark shape shot out and clamped down on the guts before dragging them back toward the river. Pull, someone shouted, but too slow. The crocodile already had its bite and was retreating. The rope snapped tight, yanking the two men holding it forward hard. The crocodile paused, confused, feeling resistance on its food. Its gaze drifted toward us nearby, and it whipped its tail hard, splashing mud everywhere before the rope finally snapped and it vanished back underwater. Zhang Zhun muttered we'd need to try again. Huang Tao asked if it would still fall for it. Zhang Zhun was confident. It had already tasted success once, it would come back for more. This time, though, we'd need to pull the bait faster once it committed, then throw the net over it the moment it got close, followed by weapons. I volunteered to help pull bait this time. Zhou Sheng rolled up his sleeves and joined me. Second round of bait went into the water. The crocodile that hadn't gone far whipped around and swam back immediately. I started pulling, dragging the guts through mud and grass toward higher ground. The crocodile followed the scent onto land, heavy steps closing the distance. Zhou Sheng and I picked up the pace pulling. The crocodile hesitated for a split second, then surged forward at full speed, straight at me. I locked eyes on it, fully focused. If the net dropped even a moment too slow, that thing would be in my face. Thankfully, timing was perfect this time. The net dropped right over it, and four people hiding just behind us yanked the tail ropes simultaneously, using its own forward momentum to trap it completely. Now, everyone rushed in, weapons raining down, focused entirely on the head. Someone got lucky and drove a spear straight into its eye. It howled in pain. My turn, a security guard shouted, swinging a long-handled axe down hard onto its skull. The connection between axe head and handle snapped on impact, leaving the axe head lodged in its skull. The pain nearly made it rear straight up. I recognized it clearly then. A fire axe, apparently strapped to a long pole for extra reach. The crocodile thrashed wildly, desperate to get back to the water, but everyone held tight to the ropes, dragging it backward instead. A dozen grown men pulling together still nearly got knocked off their feet by its strength, but its speed dropped fast. After roughly 10 seconds of struggle, it finally ran out of energy and went still. Zhang Zhun, breathing hard, said its stamina was completely spent. I remembered what Wang Jun had told me the night before about crocodiles having poor endurance. Now I'd seen it firsthand. Barely over 2 minutes of full force effort, and it was already done. Even exhausted, nobody dared get too close. Everyone kept attacking with long weapons from a safe distance until it finally stopped breathing completely. We waited another 10 minutes before approaching the body. Out on the water, more cold eyes watched silently as their own kind got butchered. This crocodile was slightly bigger than the one killed at the south gate, just over 5 meters long. With 3 more people splitting the meat this time, everyone got 38 pounds instead of 40. Still plenty to celebrate over. After the butchering, Zhang Zhun still looked troubled. Huang Tao nudged him, joking he should be happier after a successful kill. Zhang Zhun shook his head. It's nothing. Just noticed something. This one was female. So was the one we killed at the south gate. Huang Tao got curious, asking if male crocodiles were really that much bigger than females. Zhang Zhun's face turned serious. He explained males in a crocodile group average 1.5 times the length of females, and 2 to 3 times the weight. Huang Tao's smile froze. That big a gap? Zhang Zhun nodded. Crocodiles live in harems. One dominant male, a handful of females, some younger ones, all sharing a stretch of river. If food's abundant, the whole group grows bigger. Based on this female's size, the dominant male here was probably 7 to 8 meters long. 7 to 8 meters. I caught that number too, glancing instinctively back toward the deep water. Zhang Zhun looked worried. If he was right, That male could be genuinely terrifying. He brought up Lalong, the largest crocodile ever officially captured on Earth. A documentary case where villagers tried using steel cable to snare it with bait, but it kept snapping the cable no matter how thick they made it. Until finally over 60 people spent hours in a massive tug-of-war just to drag it onto land. Even starving, it weighed over 1,000 kilograms, and it was only 6.2 meters long. That last detail hit everyone hardest. Someone muttered that if 6.2 meters was already that dangerous, 7.2 would be a nightmare. Zhou Shang, thinking like a trainer, pointed out the male here could be even bigger. At 1.5 times the female's length, we were looking at 7.5 meters minimum. As someone who understood physical scaling, he knew mass differences like that couldn't be compensated for with skill alone. A 6.2-meter crocodile weighed a ton. Something 7.5 meters could weigh double that. Basically an amphibious monster. Zhang Jin said if it really was that big, we had no real way to stop it head-on. Digging a pit trap might be our only option. Some people brushed it off, arguing that was Earth data, and maybe here females were the bigger sex. Nobody had even seen this supposed monster crocodile in days. Then a scream cut through the argument. "Run! That crocodile is huge." Everyone froze, then slowly turned toward the guy who just said it probably wouldn't show up. Zheng Yuan muttered something about him jinxing it. The guy looked genuinely regretful, not expecting his words to come true so fast. Through the bushes, we could see people fleeing in the distance. Huang Tao stopped us from heading toward the south gate. That's exactly where the crocodile might be blocking the exit, and redirected us toward the east gate instead. My brother suggested the same thing. The bushes ahead shook violently, like something massive was crashing through them. "Wait, it's coming this way, run." I sprinted back several dozen meters, then looked back. Where we'd just been butchering our kill, a genuinely monstrous crocodile now lay quietly beside the remains of the female we'd killed. Just its presence radiated something terrifying. The already butchered female looked practically tiny next to it. My brother whispered, "That's huge." My heart was pounding, the kind of instinctive fear that comes from standing near something truly dangerous. It's got to be over a meter tall, just standing there. The giant crocodile opened its jaws, letting out a low, guttural roar. Its mouth alone looked big enough to swallow a full-grown adult. Then it clamped down on the female's remains and dragged them straight into the river. Only once its massive body fully disappeared underwater did everyone finally exhale. Something about its behavior didn't match what Zhang Jun had described earlier. Crocodiles supposedly being emotionally flat, purely survival-driven creatures. But what I just witnessed felt like more than simple territorial anger. There was something almost personal in it. Zhang Jun muttered under his breath that it seemed to be expressing actual anger. Not good. This crocodile might be far smarter than expected. We retreated along the outer wall, looping around through the east gate back into the complex, then made our way back to the south gate, which was now packed with people. From the crowd's chatter, I pieced together what happened. A separate hunting team had just killed a crocodile near the south gate, and while butchering it, the giant male suddenly burst out of the water, bit someone, then dragged the dead crocodile's body back into the river. They'd managed to pull the bitten man back to safety, but safety didn't mean much looking at him now. Even someone with zero medical knowledge would go silent seeing his condition. His chest and pelvis were completely caved in, like crushed fruit, his clothes soaked through with blood, breathing only outward, never in. His family knelt beside him, sobbing. When Huang Tao arrived, the grieving family swarmed him immediately. How is there a crocodile that terrifying in this river? The dead man's mother grabbed Huang Tao's collar. He was only 23. He just graduated college. He had his whole life ahead of him. Her grip went slack as she collapsed to the ground, wailing in complete despair. Why did this have to happen? I wish it had been me instead. Huang Tao stood silent for a moment. "I'm sorry." Then he turned to the crowd. "This crocodile isn't like the others. It's smarter, stronger, and now it's got a grudge against us. If we don't kill it now, our chances only get worse from here. It's the leader of its group. Kill it, and this whole stretch of river becomes truly ours." Someone pushed back. That thing had torn through a net like paper. How were we supposed to kill something that size? Huang Tao stayed firm. "Pit traps. For something with that much mass, a trap is our best shot." Silence fell over the crowd. The body lying there was proof enough of what this crocodile was capable of. Through gritted teeth, the grieving mother spoke up. I'll help dig. Yes? Let's dig. Kill that thing. Screw it. We're not letting some animal push us around. Who knows if it'll come after me or my family next. Kill it. However strong it is, it's still flesh and blood. Bury it alive in a pit. The crowd's anger surged, voices rising together. I stood there for a moment, quietly letting a small smile creep across my face. A creature this powerful had to meet the threshold for dropping a card. I had no idea what kind of reward something like that would drop. But like everyone just said, however strong it was still just flesh and blood. And anything made of flesh and blood could be killed. Ziwan, ever seen those videos of Maasai warriors hunting elephants together? Even a 6-ton elephant ends up looking like a pincushion once they're done. Zhou Sheng, still digging beside me, straightened up and wiped his forehead. I laughed. Saw those before, but those guys train their whole lives for it. Can't really compare. Hey, don't sell yourself short. I work out plenty too. My body's probably not that far off from theirs, he said, flexing his arm. Zhou Sheng was the type who looked skinny in clothes, but was actually packed with muscle underneath. Everyone was working hard on the grass outside the complex, taking turns digging. The plan was a massive pit, 12 meters long, 4 meters wide, 4 meters deep, to trap the monster crocodile. Old Deng voiced a concern. You think this pit will actually hold it? What if it just climbs back out? I figured a pit that deep should be enough, but he shook his head. What if the walls collapse? Like a landslide. If the crocodile knocks the edges down into a slope, it could just walk right back up. That made sense the more I thought about it. We found Huang Tao talking with a balding middle-aged man near the pit. The man was explaining that digging this deep was a bad idea. The soil here was too loose, and something this size would take days of heavy labor, burning through everyone's food supply fast. Even with plenty of hands, a pit this size only had room for 20 or 30 people working at once, and without machinery, digging by hand alone would take forever. The deeper it got, the harder and more dangerous the work became. He'd calculated the volume, 192 cubic meters, which would take over a dozen truckloads to move under normal conditions. At 4 meters deep, this counted as serious excavation work, and without proper support or sloped sides, it would collapse for sure. Huang Tao looked overwhelmed. He had no engineering background, just assumed digging a hole was simple. But he trusted this guy's expertise over his own guess. Huang Tao suggested trying mud instead, something like quicksand. The bald man agreed it could theoretically work. Mixed properly, mud behaves in a way where struggling only sinks you deeper, but making enough of it required massive amounts of water hauled from the river, over 100 meters away. Huang Tao mentioned the property had a diesel water pump, and there was leftover fuel in the parking garage. The man shot that down too. Even with extension hoses, the pump only reached 40 or 50 meters, nowhere near enough. I spoke up with another idea. What if we build a spike trap instead? We've got metal fencing around the complex. Strip it down, sharpen the pieces into spears, plant them at the bottom of the pit. Its belly's unprotected. Those spikes should go right through. The bald man nodded slowly, considering it. That could work, but if the pit's too shallow, it might climb out wounded and retreat to the river. After that, luring it out again would be a lot harder. I suggested covering the pit with something heavy, like a coffin lid, sealing it in. Huang Tao asked where we'd find something that big. I pointed behind us. The parking garage. All those cars. His eyes lit up. Good idea. I've got a Jeep down there. The bald man sighed, reluctantly offering up his own SUV too. Huang Tao and I both looked at him, surprised. He shrugged it off, joking that the car had lost its charm after a while anyway. Bad soundproofing, stiff seats, loud engine. We exchanged a look, deciding to just take the joke as it was. The man turned to Huang Tao, half joking that since he was contributing his car, he expected extra meat when it came time to split the kill. Huang Tao agreed enthusiastically, calling him Boss Yang and promising to consult him on future engineering problems. Boss Yang waved it off modestly, saying just calling him Old Yang was fine, admitting his body couldn't keep up with the younger guys anymore, even if his engineering knowledge still held up. He pointed toward the complex buildings. If we're serious about surviving here long-term, we've got a housing problem too. Elevators used to make higher floors desirable, better views, no downside. Now, without elevators, Those upper floors are brutal. Climbing all those stairs carrying firewood, food, water buckets every day. Manageable short term, but it'll wear people down. Eventually, Huang Tao agreed immediately. He lived on the 7th floor himself, and even as a fit guy in his 30s, the daily climb already wore on him. Couldn't imagine how the elderly or kids managed it. I mentioned lower floors weren't necessarily better either. No big animals had gotten inside yet. But that could change, and snakes, bugs, and rodents had an easier time getting into ground floor units. Huang Tao agreed with that too, admitting that's partly why he'd picked the 7th floor originally. Better light, fewer bugs. After some more casual complaining, everyone went back to work. I kept digging, glancing occasionally at the apartment windows reflecting the blue sky. One of the reasons we'd picked this complex originally was the decent build quality. No ugly security bars on the windows like older buildings. Then, a piercing screech tore through the sky. "That bird's back," someone shouted. "Run!" I looked up. A dark shape was closing in fast, directly overhead. People scattered in every direction. I scanned the area, open ground, no trees nearby, the complex gate still dozens of meters away. No way we'd outrun it in time. I grabbed my brother and shoved him toward the pit. "Get down." The giant bird moved like wind, like sudden rain. Its huge wings blocked out the sun, throwing shadow over the grass. A woman sitting nearby got snatched up by both shoulders, screaming as it carried her into the sky. It let her go mid-air, let her fall, then caught her again before she hit the ground. Once it finally flew off, everyone crept back out into the sunlight, staring after it. I muttered that this thing had basically turned us into an all-you-can-eat buffet. Up close, that bird carried the same crushing presence as the giant crocodile in the river. Zheng Yuan looked grim. "Second time it's shown up. There'll be a third, a fourth." Nobody had a real plan against something that could fly. Huang Tao asked who'd been taken. Nobody knew for sure, just that it sounded like a woman's voice. The mood turned heavy. Nobody knew who might be next, and the only real defense against a flying hunter was staying away from open ground. Someone cursed at the sky. Crocodiles in the river, man-eating birds in the sky. What kind of world is this? Then an old man came stumbling through the crowd, shouting a name over and over. No answer came. He grew frantic, asking everyone if they'd seen his wife. She'd twisted her ankle and sent him home for medicine. My brother started to say something, then stopped himself, turning away. He'd realized the woman taken by the bird was her, and she happened to be the same mother whose son had just died from the crocodile that morning. The old man froze, mouth open. His chest heaved. The bottle of liniment in his hand shattered on the ground. He collapsed, wailing at the sky. He'd seen the bird overhead on his way back and run the whole way, terrified for her safety. And still, the worst had happened anyway. He looked around at everyone, and not one person could meet his eyes. Son dead. Wife dead. Same day. He hunched over, shuffling away in silence. That evening, as it got dark, we kept working. Zhou Sheng snapped through a fence railing with hydraulic clippers, exhaling hard, rubbing his sore arm. Tougher than I expected. I picked up the broken piece. Good. Means it won't just snap under the crocodile's weight. I ran my thumb over the tip. Still needs sharpening, though. Old Yang picked up another piece, weighing it in his hand, satisfied. This zinc steel alloy is solid stuff. Could hunt anything with this, not just crocodiles. Whoever built this place didn't cut corners. This counts as a proper weapon even by ancient standards. That comment got a few people's attention. Huang Tao looked at the pile of dismantled railings and sighed. Too much for me to sharpen alone tonight. Gonna need everyone's help. People's faces twisted. They'd already spent the whole afternoon digging, and everyone just wanted to go home and rest. I volunteered. Give me a batch. I'll work on it tonight. Huang Tao's expression brightened, looking at me a little warmer after that. Someone probably thought I was just showing off, making it harder for everyone else to slack off. Zheng Yuan offered to take some too. I waved him off, joking that my sleep had been bad lately anyway. Might as well have something to do at night. He gave in and just grabbed some spears from Huang Tao instead. Back home, my brother didn't get it. Bro, nobody else is doing this. Why us? Go to bed early. I've got this. He backpedaled, worried he'd upset me, explaining he just figured with so many people, one guy grinding one rod wouldn't take long anyway. I told him to grab me 2 rough, hard stones instead. Of course, I couldn't explain the real reason, the daily score. By now I'd figured out the pattern pretty well. Gathering resources, mapping territory, hunting. Anything that helped survival counted toward points. If we actually managed to kill that dominant male crocodile, the score would be huge. And bringing home all this zinc-steel alloy, working it by hand. In a world this primitive, that had to count as gathering rare material. Whether it counted directly or not, sharpening these weapons myself only added to my contribution toward the hunt either way. That night, curtains open, moonlight pouring in, I crouched on the floor grinding the metal spear tips against stone. Scrape, scrape. Late into the night, the voice came again. I'd survived day 5, helped hunt a crocodile as a team, got a share of raw meat. We'd seen the dominant male crocodile controlling this river, and the whole complex was now working together on a trap. I'd helped set it up, but apparently forgot something. Score, 19 points. Reward, a level 1 farmland card, for bags of rabbit feed, and a hatchet. Forgot something. My eyes landed on the rabbit feed. Damn it. I forgot to feed the rabbits today. I rushed to the cage. That morning I'd left a little bit of wild greens in the trough, but the rabbits hadn't touched it. Now the trough sat completely empty, and both rabbits looked weak and sluggish. I pulled out a bag of the feed. A full 20 pounds appeared in my hand. Tore it open and poured the dry pellets into the trough, catching a strong smell of hay and toasted grain as it fell. The rabbits hesitated for a second at the smell, then practically dove into the trough, eating like they hadn't seen food in days, so absorbed they didn't even notice my hand gently stroking their backs. 20 pounds a bag, 4 bags total, 80 pounds of rabbit feed with Chinese writing right on the front. I read the label by moonlight. Turns out this stuff was just a supplement, not a full meal. Helps with nutrition and digestion, but hay or fresh grass still had to be the main diet. Cats and dogs could live off dry food alone, but apparently rabbits couldn't. I scooped up both rabbits before they made themselves sick gorging on it. They kicked and squirmed the whole time, snorting and squeaking in protest. I pulled half the feed back out of the trough before setting them back down. They dove right back in the second I let go. Figured I'd grab some grass in the morning. Too risky wandering around at night with the animals more active. Standing at the bedroom window, the forest outside looked unusually still, just the occasional shape flying overhead. I pulled the curtain shut and stepped onto the living room balcony instead, looking out over the complex at night. A gray metal card appeared in my hand, the farmland card. Needed a 20 by 20 meter space, way more room than my entire apartment could offer even completely emptied out. No way to use it anytime soon. I tossed it back into storage. Glancing down, I noticed movement below, someone heading toward building 8 this late at night. Strange, since nighttime was when the animals were most active, way riskier than daytime. I ducked down, watched them enter the building, then quietly moved to stand behind my own door, listening. Footsteps climbed the stairs, getting closer, finally stopping right on my floor. Knock, knock, knock. A door opened across the hall, then closed again softly. That was Wang Xiaoli's place. Who'd be visiting her this late? I scratched my head, wondering if it was some relative of Xie Jun's I hadn't accounted for. Good thing I was still up. Her door creaked open again. Voices drifted into the hallway. A man and a woman, both trying to keep quiet. I recognized Wang Xiaoli's voice immediately. Is it safe out here? What if someone sees us? Relax. Don't be such a coward. Then came sounds I really didn't need to hear. I got it now. Wang Xiaoli had found herself a new side hustle. 2 minutes later, the man let out a satisfied sigh, his tone shifting cold. Doesn't matter what you're worried about now. Worry about it if you live that long. There's instant noodles on your table. I'm leaving. Footsteps faded down the stairs. That little interruption killed my plan to go grab grass tonight. Better to just sleep and handle it in the morning. Before bed, though, I still had crocodile meat to salt and prep for smoking, or it'd spoil. By the time I finished, it was past 1 in the morning, and I was running low on salt from last time's reward. Without a fresh supply, I decided the next big batch of meat would go toward trading for vegetables or live animals instead of salting. I was starting to think maybe I should just check my daily results in the morning instead of staying up past midnight every night. My sleep schedule was getting rough. Next morning, my brother woke me up. I lay there a while longer before finally getting up, rubbing my tired eyes. In the bathroom, a full day's worth of water had collected at the bottom of the spring, clear and fresh. I scooped some up and rinsed my mouth with it. After breakfast, I told my brother to head up to the roof and handle the smoking alone this time, reminding him to cover everything with the bedsheet like before to avoid drawing attention. He looked worried about me instead, telling me to be careful and not go toe-to-toe with the crocodile directly. I patted his shoulder, told him I knew what I was doing, then asked him to help me gather firewood and pull some grass for the rabbits first. We carried the sharpened metal rods to the south gate. Huang Tao was already there with a crew, working hard. He took the rods from me eagerly. Perfect. Exactly what we need. That monster isn't walking away from this today. He mentioned he'd talked with old Yang. The pit should be finished by noon, then they'd line the bottom with spikes. Given yesterday's incident, some neighbors were worried the bird or the crocodile might strike again while everyone worked, so he wanted to post lookouts watching the sky and the river. The elderly folks sitting by the gate couldn't do heavy labor, but keeping watch seemed doable. He asked what I thought. I was a little confused why he was asking me specifically, then realized paying people for lookout duty meant carving out a new share of the meat reward, which could upset people who'd already agreed on a distribution plan. I just told him it was his call either way. He hesitated, then laughed it off, saying he'd check with others too. Before he left, I mentioned my brother had something to handle this morning and wouldn't be helping with the pit today. Huang Tao looked a little uncomfortable, reminding me everyone had agreed work equals reward, and people were watching each other closely this time. I said the rules should stick. My brother helped yesterday, skipped today, so his share should reflect exactly that. No favors needed. He looked relieved. Glad you understand. After he walked off, my brother grumbled about how friendly Huang Tao acted while conveniently forgetting to credit me extra for staying up half the night sharpening those rods. I just laughed it off, telling him not to take any of it personally. Everyone here was just playing a part, better not to fully trust anyone. We spent a while gathering different kinds of fresh grass near the gate, a variety of types, so I could figure out what the rabbits actually preferred. After my brother left, I joined the digging crew and worked through the morning. By noon, the pit was finally finished, sharp spikes planted firmly at the bottom, ready and waiting. My brother came running over with a smile. I gave him a look, and he stepped behind me, whispering that everything was hung up in the usual spot. I told him I trusted him completely, and he grinned at that. He looked at the crowd gathered around the pit, curious what was happening. I explained. The trap was ready, covered with thin boards and leaves, and now they just needed volunteers to lure the crocodile over. Sign-ups had already filled up fast since the bait runners got an extra share of meat. 2 young guys got picked for the job. I peeked into the pit myself, spears planted everywhere at different angles, some straight up, some tilted. My brother asked if the big crocodile would actually take the bait. I told him we'd done everything we could. The rest was up to luck. Huang Tao gave the 2 volunteers final instructions. If a smaller crocodile showed up instead, run northeast, away from the pit, since another team was ready for smaller ones. If it was the big one, run straight ahead toward the trap. They nodded, grabbed the guts, and headed to the river. Everyone else scattered to hide. 3 SUVs waited nearby, ready to seal the pit shut the moment the crocodile fell in. At the river, the 2 men tossed the guts in, then backed away several meters, watching the water. A massive shadow took shape beneath the surface. The water exploded. The giant crocodile burst out, crawling fast across the mud, tail thrashing water everywhere. The 2 men bolted, but it was faster than anyone expected. Less than 20 meters in, the man in yellow got slammed from behind, his back hit by pure force, sending him sprawling. "Help me!" His scream cut short into something worse. The crocodile clamped down on his head and upper body in one bite. Blood sprayed everywhere. His partner, hearing the scream, nearly collapsed from fear but kept running without looking back. The heavy footsteps behind him grew louder. He spotted the trap ahead and smiled with relief. Right before his foot caught on a rock he never saw, sending him crashing down. He barely had time to think why is there even a rock here before he scrambled back up, only to find the crocodile already looming over him, jaws wide, nearly 4 tons of bite force closing in like a giant hydraulic press. The scream that followed froze everyone watching. Even with the crocodile just meters from the trap, nobody dared step out to lure it further. The dominant male, having just killed 2 people, swept its cold gaze across the crowd like it was declaring the territory its own. Then it turned to head back toward the river. A stone flew through the air, landing 2 meters behind it. It paused mid-turn, glancing toward where the stone landed. Another stone struck it dead on the nose. Silence fell. Every eye turned to whoever had thrown it. An old man with gray hair, dressed in black, stood in front of the trap, fists clenched, eyes blazing with fury. He picked up another stone and hurled it hard. "You monster! Come here!" The crocodile roared back, understanding the challenge even without words. It charged straight at him, heavy steps pounding the earth. The old man glanced around at everyone else, gave a strange, resigned smile, then turned and calmly walked out onto the covering over the trap, boards and plastic sheeting, only meant to hold someone light enough to cross without noticing. "Old man, get off there. It's coming," someone shouted. He just shook his head, smiling with something like peace, watching the crocodile close in. Crack. The boards groaned under the strain. Crash. Both the man and the crocodile dropped straight into the pit together. The crocodile howled from inside. Huang Tao shouted for the drivers to move in fast. Zheng Yuan looked stunned. There was a person down there. Huang Tao shot back, desperate. "Nobody survives that fall. Don't waste what he just gave everyone." The crocodile clawed at the pit walls, tearing chunks of dirt loose, trying and failing to climb out. The SUVs rolled forward, engines roaring, doors thrown open as each driver leapt clear right before their car dropped into the pit. One driver jumping a little too fast, twisting his ankle on the landing. All 3 vehicles landed inside. Angles imperfect, but combined weight pressing down on the crocodile like 3 boulders stacked on its back. The sounds from inside the pit grew weaker and weaker. A crowd gathered around the edge, shoving and complaining. "Hey, don't push. Can't move up here. Stop crowding from behind." Once the crowd thinned out enough, I walked over and looked down. The massive male crocodile lay still at the bottom, 3 vehicles pinning it at odd angles, spears driven clean through parts of its body. Others snapped under the weight. Its body still twitched occasionally. Whoa, its tail just moved. Is it actually dead? Not sure, but I heard these things are cold-blooded, like snakes, can still bite even after dying. How does that even work? How should I? No, I told you I never finished school. Wait, what is that? Look, on the crocodile's back, tiny points of light began gathering, glowing white and unmistakable in the sunlight. The particles swirled together in the air, slowly forming a gray card, floating and spinning gently above the body. The crowd fell silent for a beat, then erupted all at once in disbelief. I stared at the card hovering above the crocodile's body. The homestead system clearly wasn't trying to hide it. No burying it in the belly, no waiting for someone to stumble on it later. Just showing it off to everyone at once. The crowd erupted with questions. Some wondered if it gave superpowers. Some thought it might send us home. Others just said it had to be important, obviously. While people argued, someone sprinted forward and jumped, landing on the tilted SUV. Before he could steady himself, the car shifted under him, tilting further, and he tumbled straight into the pit, landing right on 2 upright spears through the chest. He reached weakly toward the glowing card just out of reach. Nobody moved to help him. All eyes stayed locked on the prize. That death made everyone more cautious, though. The pit floor was a minefield of spikes, and falling meant more than just bruises now. My brother's eyes lit up. "Bro, should we try for it? Just watch," I told him, giving him a warning look. Just one card, and over 2,000 people in this complex. Even if I fought off the 100 or so people here to grab it, 2,000 more back home would have their eyes on me forever after. Being the first person to claim something like this in public rarely ended well. Besides, this was probably just another building card. I'd already gotten 3 of those, nothing special compared to resource cards. My spring alone gave 20 to 30 liters of clean drinking water daily, enough for over a dozen people easily. Zhou Sheng, apparently done watching everyone hesitate, stripped off his jacket, lined up his jump, and launched himself onto the middle car's hood. People shouted after him, worried, telling him to be careful, not to fall. Despite watching someone die trying the exact same thing moments earlier, he pressed forward anyway, clearly having accepted whatever risk came with it. He carefully stepped around the spears jutting from the crocodile's back and grabbed the card. The moment his hand closed around it, the glow disappeared, leaving just an ordinary gray metal card. His face went blank for a second, like he'd heard something. Then his expression shifted through several emotions before he finally spat out. Damn it. Turns out the card only worked back at his apartment. All that risk for nothing useful right now. Annoyed, he practically wanted to throw it away like a hot potato. People at the edge relaxed once they saw the card hadn't vanished, joking that if he couldn't use it, he should hand it over. Sure, go fight for it then, Zhou Sheng said, and hurled the card clean out of the pit. It arced through the air and landed in the crowd. Chaos erupted instantly. Everyone lunged for it at once, shoving, screaming, fighting. Zhou Sheng quietly exhaled, relieved. Whatever this level 1 woodworking shed card was, it sounded like something from an old building sim game, and needing to activate it at home confused him. Was he supposed to build a whole extra room? He climbed out of the pit. Huang Tao rushed over, sounding disappointed. Buddy, why'd you throw it away after all that effort? So what actually is that card? Zhou Sheng silently mocked him for cutting straight to the point. If he hadn't thrown it, he probably wouldn't have made it out of that pit at all. He brushed dirt off himself and said, pointedly, you'll understand everything the moment you hold it in your hand. Just take it home to use it. Go grab it yourself if you're curious. Huang Tao looked confused, but latched onto that one detail. Understand everything once you hold it. He thanked him quickly and rushed off toward the fighting crowd with a few others. It's mine. Let go, damn it. Who the hell kicked me? Let me see it. The crowd descended into complete chaos. Hair pulling, punches, kicks, an all-out brawl over the card. Every single person who touched it heard the same voice from the homestead system. Off to the side, a man sat slumped on the ground, neck and arms covered in red marks, hair a mess. I thought this thing might send me home. Turns out it's just some stupid building card. In the crowd, a man in white managed to grab it and sprinted toward the complex, desperate to get home and use it. Crack! An iron rod slammed into his leg. He screamed and collapsed. Crack! Another hit landed on his head. His body twitched once, then went still, blood soaking through his clothes. A hook-nosed man holding the rod pried the card from his fingers, then turned to glare at the crowd, voice dripping with menace. Anyone wants this, I'll kill them. He turned to leave. Thunk! A rock the size of an egg cracked against the back of his head. His legs buckled, and he stumbled, turning just enough to see who threw it before collapsing entirely. Someone else flying kicked him to the ground, snatching both the card and the rod from his hands. The fighting started all over again. I watched the brawl unfold, over 100 people tearing into each other. That's a lot of pent-up anger. Everyone's lost it over one card, my brother muttered. Zheng Yuan walked over, watching with something like regret. Not even worth it. This is worse than when we were fighting the crocodile. I asked if he wasn't going to try for it. In my head, Zheng Yuan had always struck me as the type who'd jump into anything without hesitation. But he shook his head. Nah, Zhou Sheng already told me. It's just some building card, can't get me home. Not worth fighting for. And even if I got it, I couldn't hold on to it in a crowd this size anyway. The card ended up going to Huang Tao, mostly, because he had numbers on his side. 4 grown men working with him, 3 security guards always at his shoulder, while most families could only spare 2. Min-max. He'd also stayed active the whole time hunting the crocodile, and even without anyone officially voting him leader, he'd gotten familiar with pretty much everyone by now. Familiarity gave him leverage. After half an hour of fighting and 3 deaths, people were exhausted and losing their appetite for more chaos. Huang Tao settled it by offering everyone present a pound of meat each. He looked at the 3 bodies with a complicated expression. Whose families were these? Someone identified the guy in white. Building 10, Unit 1, 4th floor. The hook-nosed one lived alone in Building 8, apparently divorced. The 3rd victim's face was purple and swollen, eyes bulging, mud footprints covering his body. The doctor checked his pulse and breathing, shook his head. Death by compression asphyxiation. I didn't know what to feel watching this. Killing the dominant crocodile itself only cost 3 lives. Fighting over its reward card cost exactly the same number, plus way more injuries. Beyond the dead, plenty of people walked away covered in bruises. My brother looked disturbed by the whole scene, thinking about everything hidden in our own apartment. He silently promised himself he'd never breathe a word about it to anyone. If people fought like this over one card, imagining what they'd do knowing how many we already had made his blood run cold. He glanced at me, expecting to see some reaction. My face stayed completely calm. He couldn't help but admire how deep my composure ran. Someone in the crowd called out, asking Huang Tao to let everyone see what the card actually did, now that he'd won it. Others echoed the request, and with enough people pushing, he couldn't really refuse. He smiled and agreed, leading everyone back to his place. Building 7, Unit 1, Apartment 701. I was curious myself. A woodworking shed sounded like an actual structure, different from the animal pen or cellar I'd already built. Inside his apartment, he pulled out the card, explaining he needed a 4 by 4 meter empty space to use it. Since his place wasn't big enough as is, a few guys helped him move his couch and table out of the way to clear the spot. The card dissolved into white light, wrapping around the cleared area. Gasps went up. When the light faded, a small wooden shed stood in the middle of his living room. 3 solid walls, one side open, ceiling nearly touching his actual ceiling. Inside sat a workbench with a vise, wood planer, a simple saw stand, and tools hanging on the back wall. Handsaw, hammer, chisel, plane, carpenter's square, ink line marker. The room buzzed with amazement. People crowded at the door, craning their necks for a look. Whoa, so it really does build a whole woodworking room. What did you think it was going to be? If we've got a woodworking shed now, shouldn't it come with an actual carpenter too? That got a good laugh. Conjuring an actual person out of thin air would have been a whole different level of magic. Huang Tao admitted he wished it worked that way too. Someone loyal and skilled with woodworking, completely obedient, would have been incredibly valuable right now. Listening to all this, I thought back to something the homestead system had mentioned early on, recruitment cards. Just from the name, I could guess exactly what those did. Maybe conjuring people wasn't as impossible as everyone assumed. Seeing the woodworking shed in action seemed to calm most people down though. Impressive, sure, but not as game-changing as everyone had hyped it up to be. Just an extra room that ate up floor space. Curiosity satisfied, everyone headed back to the south gate to help drag the 3 SUVs and the dead crocodile out of the pit. Even though this one was bigger than the last, with over 100 people splitting the meat, everyone only walked away with 10 pounds each. Carrying my 17 pounds home with my brother, I figured this amount wasn't worth smoking. Drying meat extends shelf life, but sacrifices some of the fresh taste. Hey, young man, wait up. An older woman stopped me in the complex, eyeing the meat in my hands, practically drooling. She asked our ages, flattering us, guessing we probably weren't married yet. I stopped, wary eyebrows raised. My brother snapped, "Why do you care?" She explained she was playing matchmaker for a neighbor's family. 2 daughters, the older one 24, fresh out of college and studying for civil service exams. The younger one still in high school, about to take her college entrance exams. Apparently the family had been watching us near the south gate earlier today, hoping to find good matches for their daughters, and thought we looked promising. My brother blurted out, "That's basically selling your own daughters." I just shook my head. "Sorry, we're not interested in that right now. Too many secrets in my life to bring some stranger into my home." She wasn't deterred, insisting it wasn't like that at all. Both daughters were pretty, kind, well-mannered, and we should just meet them. No pressure. See if there was any connection first. I waved her off and kept walking. My brother jogged to catch up, shaking his head, convinced she was probably running some kind of scam. In my head, Wang Xiaoli's face flashed by. 6 days into this new world now. Even the slowest person should have caught on by now. Everyone was scrambling to adapt in their own way. However many schemes, however many angles people worked, it all came down to the same thing in the end, survival. "Maybe," I said. In the pen, both rabbits scurried away the moment I walked in. I crouched by the trough, poking through what was left. Picky little things. They ate all the tender leaves and tips first. Looking closer, they'd cleared out the softest, thinnest leaves, leaving 2 types of grass completely untouched. I called my brother over, held up the rejected grass. "Skip these 2 from now on. Grab more of the other 3, especially the tender tips." He nodded. "For water, just scoop some from the spring. A little extra is fine. They'll drink when thirsty." He looked ready to take notes. Then he suggested covering the spring with cloth to keep dust and dirt out, since the animal pen was right nearby now. "We don't have a cloth that big," I said. He grinned. "I'll sew a few bedsheets together." That genuinely surprised me. This big, tough-looking kid could actually sew? "Since when do you know how to sew?" He blinked. "So what? Sewing. You just said, oh, I meant find someone else to sew it. Plenty of people in this complex know how. We can trade food for the work. I patted his shoulder, honestly impressed. Good thinking. That's on you then. I'm going to sleep. I yawned. 2 nights straight past midnight. Up again by 6. Full days of hard labor in between. My body was done arguing about it. I woke up the next morning and checked the results. I'd survived day 6. Worked with the whole complex to take down the dominant male crocodile. Actively helped set the trap and tried my hand at raising rabbits. Score, 47 points. Reward, another blank expansion card, a level 1 bathroom card, 2 fish traps, and an archery kit. Another expansion card, finally. My apartment still wasn't big enough for the farmland card. 400 square meters was way out of reach for a while yet. As for the bathroom card, made sense. Everyone still had normal bodily needs, and with the water shut off and no working sewage system, people were reduced to bagging waste or sneaking off somewhere private outdoors. I used the blank expansion card first, placing it right between the animal pen and the spring. No rule said new space had to go on the edges. Light flashed, and when it cleared, the gap between the two had stretched nearly 10 meters, the whole area noticeably bigger. The bathroom needed a 2x2 space. I picked a spot north of the pen and activated it. When the light faded, a small brick building stood there. Blue brick walls, a wooden door, thick black tile roof. Inside, cement-coated walls and a single squat toilet. Everything looked brand new, and there was even a flush button behind it. I stared at that button, confused. A flush toilet? Where's the water even coming from? Please don't tell me it's pulling from my spring. That thing barely makes enough for drinking as it is. I pressed it anyway. Instantly, the floor opened and a powerful suction sound kicked in, followed by blue deodorizing liquid spraying down the sides. Fast, efficient, like an airplane bathroom. I hadn't expected anything this modern. I figured a level 1 toilet would be some primitive pit, not this. My home now showed 298 square meters, 2.8 meter ceilings, with the cellar, animal pen, and bathroom all listed as buildings, plus the spring as a resource. Looking at that summary, I felt genuinely proud of what I'd built. Back in my room, I checked out the other rewards. The fish trap was small, 6 segments, each about 50 centimeters. I'd seen neighbors use similar ones in the river for small fish, shrimp, eels, occasionally something. Better if you got lucky. The archery kit had a 50-pound compound bow, 15 carbon fiber broadhead arrows, and a small instruction booklet on proper form and safety. That morning, the riverbank near the south gate was crowded. According to Old Deng, several crocodile hunting teams had formed after yesterday, but nobody had spotted a single crocodile since. People were getting bolder, fishing, catching shrimp, even wading in barefoot to grab eels out of the mud. Got one. Got one. A mud-covered middle-aged man shouted excitedly, holding up a fat eel, easily half a pound or more. One fisherman finally lost his patience with all the noise and splashing kids throwing rocks in the water, snapping at the guy to keep it down. The eel catcher just laughed it off and walked away without arguing. Old Deng packed up his rod, deciding to try further downstream. Too many people crowding the water meant fewer fish sticking around, and his wife actually agreed. With him for once. With the dominant crocodile dead, people had gotten braver overall. If that monster could be killed, what was left to be scared of? Plus, there were hunting teams patrolling now. But all that activity stirred up the water, making everything harder to catch. I decided not to set my fish traps here yet. Too crowded, too easy for someone to steal them if I wasn't watching constantly. Better to set them at dusk when the crowd thinned out, then collect them early the next morning. As for bait, nothing would work better than the guts from yesterday's dominant crocodile kill. We went back to where they'd tossed yesterday's crocodile guts, but only bloodstains remained. Whatever was left had already been dragged off overnight. Disappointing, but not surprising after a whole night. The two families walked downstream a bit. I told Deng to wait while I ran home for my fishing rod. He looked confused at the black bag I was carrying instead. You didn't bring your rod? Nope. This is a fish trap, I said, shaking the bag. His eyes went wide, glancing around nervously. You've got one of those? Just remembered I had it, I said, laughing. He immediately warned me to keep it hidden. If the wrong people noticed, it could bring trouble. Then he sighed, touched that I trusted him with it, promising he'd never breathe a word to anyone. He turned to his wife and daughter, telling them to keep quiet about it too. His wife crossed her arms, annoyed. When have I ever run my mouth? His daughter nodded eagerly. She might not know much, but she understood the basics. Staying close to us meant a better shot at extra fish. Staying loyal to someone else meant just watching from the sidelines. I asked if Deng knew how to set a fish trap properly. He puffed his chest out proudly. Grew up in the countryside. Used to see them all the time before regulations cracked down on it back home. He explained traps worked differently than fishing rods. No instant results. You had to leave them a while first. Everyone gave him a look after that comment. He got defensive. My bad luck fishing has nothing to do with fish numbers, his wife smirked. At least you didn't blame the river this time. His daughter burst out laughing. A wild, untouched river like this definitely wasn't short on fish. Deng puffed up again, insisting fishing rods might not be his strong suit, but setting traps definitely was. Location mattered most, near water grass or rock piles for streams, calm river bends with plenty of vegetation for rivers, opening facing the current. Bait with snail or frog meat, or even discarded pig organs, worked great. Leave it overnight, and morning brings a full catch. I gave him a thumbs up. Deng's the man, his daughter chimed in. Teasing, Qin's the man too. Her parents both turned and stared at her, confused by the phrasing. She got flustered. It's just a meme. You old people wouldn't get it, her mom smirked. Right, Mom doesn't get it. Deng just sighed and said nothing. His daughter pouted, glancing sideways at my brother's back. We reached the southeast corner of the complex, closer to the east gate. I sent my brother back home to grab my fishing rod off the living room table. The east gate was much quieter than the south one. I'd explored most other directions around the complex by now, but rarely came this way since it was furthest from home. Occasionally, I'd spot a few neighbors heading deeper into the forest with packs on their backs. My brother came running back with the rod. Deng waved us toward a spot he remembered downstream, where there was some worm bait left from before. We found a small backwater bend, thick with water grass, calm terrain around it. Perfect for fish, but also perfect cover for snakes and crocodiles alike. So we kept our distance from the water's edge. We settled in a few meters back, lines cast long. The others crouched nearby, keeping watch. A cool breeze drifted through, the trees behind us blocking the sun. I mentioned that fishing was still steady for now, but once more people made their own rods, or someone figured out how to weave nets, it wouldn't stay this easy for long. Deng didn't want to think that far ahead. Whatever. As long as I can fish, I'll keep fishing. Long as I'm around, my girls won't go hungry. My line jerked. Got one. Water splashed. A small silver fish had taken the bait. Then the surface broke again as something much bigger clamped down on it. The rod bent into a full arc. What the hell is that? I stared at the massive dark shape underwater, nearly a meter long, gripping the rod with everything I had. Deng shouted for me to let go before the rod snapped. Snap! The line broke instead. The rod flew upward, and I landed flat on my backside. Lucky there was no rock behind me. I stared at the empty, broken line in disbelief, finally understanding what fishermen meant by heartbreak over the one that got away. Did you see that thing? That was easily a meter long. Deng looked just as devastated. I saw it. Vicious thing, eating other fish like that. Right as he said it, his own rod jerked hard. He yanked it up fast. Water broke again. Another big fish surfaced, thrashing wildly, looking suspiciously similar to the one that just got away. He froze for a second before gripping the rod tight on instinct. Let go, or it'll snap, I warned him. His expression shifted, determined. My line's thicker. I'm trying this. Losing a fish this size would haunt him for weeks. And more importantly, that was food. The fish yanked hard, nearly pulling him into the water. I grabbed his waist and pulled back to help anchor him. Years of watching fishing videos online had clearly paid off. Can't force it. Gotta tire it out, he said, yanking the tip up sharply to set the hook deeper, then leveling the rod, letting the reel spin freely as the fish made its run. It thrashed and fought, trying everything to break free. Deng held firm through the first wild sprint, then raised the tip again once it slowed, letting the rod's flex absorb the strain instead of muscling it directly. Back and forth, the fish charged, then rested, charged again. Deng's brain was working overtime, feeling like a genius in the moment, reading every movement, reeling out when it pulled, reeling in when it calmed. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the tension alone. I offered to help. He hesitated, then handed the rod over. Just do what I did. Don't force it. Wear it down. Even after handing it off, he stayed locked on the water, ready to grab it back at any second. Half an hour later, the fish below started slowing for good. Reel it in now, he said. I pulled the line in steadily. A big bronze-colored fish surfaced belly up, dragged closer by the line. Deng reached for the rod, then hesitated, noticing how into it I clearly was after doing all that work. I caught his look and laughed. It's your fish, Deng. I just never landed one this big before. Right as the fish neared the bank, it sensed danger and thrashed hard one last time, trying to bolt back into deep water. Whack! My brother swung his stick down hard, and the fight went out of it instantly. Once we hauled it onto the bank, everyone got a good look. Nearly a meter long, and its mouth was packed with rows of sharp, dangerous-looking teeth. I pried its mouth open, checking out those teeth. A bite from this thing would really hurt. My brother agreed instantly. Deng measured with his hands, guessing it was more like 70 or 80 centimeters, not a full meter. Water distorts how big things look. Easy mistake to make. He thought it might be an African tiger fish, and those apparently traveled in packs. My brother's eyebrows shot up at that. Crocodiles and pack-hunting fish in the same river? This place really didn't hold back. Deng stood, wanting to get the fish home fresh, offering to split it with me since landing it was mostly thanks to me. I waved him off, his rod, his bait. I barely did anything. Asked if my broken line was still usable. He checked it, said the rod itself was fine, just needed a new hook, which he'd swap out for me. He acted annoyed at my refusal, joking he wouldn't invite me fishing again if I kept being so polite about it. His wife smiled, telling me just to accept it. Deng had never landed anything this big before, and honestly it was because of us. She bagged up the fish, its tail sticking out the edge of the plastic despite how big the bag was. Deng suggested cutting through the parking garage to get back to Building 8, avoiding the crowds outside. I agreed. Hadn't been down there since we arrived, curious what state it was in. The garage only had one entrance, near the east gate, guard booth abandoned, barriers ripped out. Stepping inside, the temperature dropped noticeably, air turning cold and damp. No power meant near total darkness beyond the entrance, just rows of silent cars. Everyone hesitated. Someone suggested going around instead. I pulled out my flashlight, flicking it to the third setting, lighting up the whole space instantly. A rat scurried out from under a nearby car and vanished into a corner. We pushed forward. My brother wondered out loud if the car engines could be turned into generators somehow. I said maybe, if someone knew what they were doing. Then I stopped. A smell hit me, something rotten, sour-sweet like a dead fish market mixed with ammonia. Instantly nauseating even on first exposure. Deng's daughter pinched her nose. Please tell me that's not a dead body. I told her she was probably right. The smell got stronger the further we walked. Around a corner, a figure sat slumped against a car door, a dark, wet stain pooled beneath him, flies buzzing thick around the body, bugs crawling in and out of his clothes. She gagged, unable to hold it in any longer. Let's keep moving, I said, looking away. No idea how he died. Whatever the reason, it meant this garage wasn't as safe as it looked. We moved past quickly and carefully. She asked how a body could just sit there this long. Did nobody claim him? Deng explained plenty of renters lived alone or with roommates, easy to slip through the cracks. Whoa, look at that gecko, she pointed up. On the ceiling beams, a gecko with glowing eyes clung motionless, then scurried out of the light, disappearing behind the beam, only its tail visible. A gray rat peeked halfway out of a drain in the wall, watching us pass. Deng sighed. Just a few days, and the garage had already turned into its own little ecosystem. My brother agreed. Completely its own environment now. Made sense really. The entrance stayed wide open, forest right outside. Small animals wandering in was inevitable. Cold, damp, exactly what certain creatures loved. I wondered if Huang Tao's group had noticed that body yesterday when they grabbed the SUVs. We crossed the whole garage and finally reached the stairwell for Building 8. Splitting up on the 5th floor, Deng's wife reminded me to come back for the fish later. Deng said he'd take my rod home, fix it, and bring it up after. After resting briefly, my brother and I went out to gather grass for the rabbits. A few older women stopped to watch curiously. Hey, can people eat that grass? No. Then why are you picking it? Annie, do you have any food? I'm starving. Could you spare some? She laughed awkwardly, looking away. Oh, I just remembered I left the light on at home and hurried off. That afternoon, we visited Deng's place. His wife welcomed us warmly, handed us slippers. Deng sat on the balcony wearing reading glasses, carefully threading fish hooks, their apartment decorated in a modern Chinese style. She came out from the kitchen and handed us a bag, half the fish, cleaned and ready. Sister-in-law, this is, Xiao Shuamei stayed serious, pushing the bag into my hands. I know you two are kind at heart, but relationships last longer when there are clear rules between people. All right, I won't be shy about it then. I took the bag. She glanced at her daughter still sitting on the couch. Xiaowen, quit lounging around. Go wash some apples for your brothers. The girl jumped up, grabbed 2 apples from the fruit basket, and disappeared into the kitchen. Xiao Shuamei asked if it was okay for her to call me by my first name. I told her of course, already suspecting where this conversation was heading. The fish, the fruit, all leading somewhere. She sighed. My husband is a kind man. That's why I married him. Steady, dependable, family first. Under normal circumstances, that kind of steady personality is enough to hold a family together with a stable job. But things are different now. Her expression softened into something almost nostalgic. I used to love reading novels when I was younger. Transmigration stories were popular back then. I read plenty. If we'd landed somewhere with actual civilization, maybe things would be easier. But we ended up in a primitive forest instead. If it weren't for this complex, we'd basically be living like cavemen. I nodded, letting her continue. My husband's personality doesn't fit a place like this. He's too soft-hearted, too easy to take advantage of. I just hope you two can look out for him a little. What exactly are you asking? I used to work in HR, so I like to think I'm decent at reading people. You're decisive, but at your core, you're principled, someone who does things by the rules. That matters. My husband doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't gamble. His only real hobby is fishing after work sometimes. I never imagined we'd end up depending on that hobby just to eat, but I know it won't last. She sighed again. Fishing's easy to pick up. More people in the complex will start doing it, and this stretch of river alone can't feed everyone forever. Eventually, there'll be too many people and not enough fish. Nobody survives alone out here. You made sure to save him a spot when you went after that crocodile. He remembers that. He knows you two are decent people. She glanced toward the kitchen, lowering her voice. My husband might not be sharp, but he's got strength, and he's honest. You two clearly think ahead. Let him help you. He'd make a good pair of hands. She hesitated, something pleading in her eyes. I'm not asking for much. Just let him learn from you. Be useful somehow. Times have changed. I don't want my daughter and me to end up being a burden on him someday. Old Deng, still threading hooks out on the balcony, had gone completely still. His daughter came back in with the washed apples, eyes bright, holding the plate out. Big brother Qin. I nodded quietly, picked up an apple, waited in my hand for a second, then smiled reassuringly. Sister-in-law, I understand. Deng's a solid guy. Working together beats struggling alone any day. And who says he's just strong? He's a solid angler too. Landed a meter-long fish today. I glanced at my brother, who caught on immediately, grinning. Yeah, sister-in-law, Deng's a good guy. We get along great. Her shoulders relaxed at that. From the balcony, Deng cleared his throat. 81.3 centimeters. I burst out laughing. Of course he'd measured it exactly after bringing it home. Wondered if he'd taken a photo too. The families kept talking a while longer. Deng insisted we call him when we set the fish traps tonight. He'd save the tiger fish's guts specifically as bait, guaranteed to pull in more fish from the river. That afternoon, my brother and I headed further north of the complex than we'd ever gone, carrying our snare trap gear. Over 200 meters out, thick trees blocking the view completely, we couldn't even see the complex's outline from there anymore. This spot works, I decided, setting 2 snares under a pair of trees, baited with dried mulberries. We marked the trail back with scratches on tree bark, so we wouldn't lose our way. After 6 straight days of sun-drying, that very first batch of mulberries we'd picked had finally turned into proper dried fruit. Looked almost exactly like the kind you'd buy at a store. On the way back, my brother pointed out a plum tree, recognizing it from his old school. Then he frowned, noticing most of the fruit had already been picked. A few remained, but only in spots too awkward to reach easily. Guess someone's already been through here, I said. Made sense, 6 days in, And while the crocodile hunt had drawn attention, only a few hundred people out of thousands had actually participated, mostly clustered around the south gate and riverbank. The north, east, and far west sides of the complex were still wide open territory, and someone was bound to start exploring eventually. Without the daily scoring system pushing me, I might have played it safer. But with it in play, calculated risks were worth taking for a better score, not recklessly, just enough to keep moving forward. Back at the complex, the sky was starting to dim. Clear skies all day, a light breeze drifting through. The courtyard had settled into an unofficial marketplace by now. Not quite peak hours yet. That came later once everyone made it back from their day outside. Xiao Xuemei had told me all this the night before, having wandered down herself for a bit of relaxation. Compared to the chaotic early days of trading, the market had settled into something more stable now. People had figured out what things were actually worth, and a proper price system had taken shape within the complex. So many people here, bro, makes sense. Humans are social animals. For a lot of people, this is probably the only chance they get to relax anymore. Xiao Xuemei laughed behind her hand, agreeing. Everyone wakes up worrying about food all day. This was the one small break in the routine. I noticed Deng hadn't come down. She said he was napping, and Xiaowen would call him down soon. Vendors shouted over each other nearby, one selling kitchen knives, another selling cutting boards. It drew a crowd. Someone teased the cutting board seller, an old man in glasses and a traditional jacket. What good is a cutting board without a knife? You're selling sand in a desert here. The old man wasn't fazed. Not sand in a desert, my friend. Pure water in the ocean. When pushed on the difference, he explained trees were everywhere outside, sure, but without tools, wood stays wood forever. He pointed out his board's thickness and size, claiming that with a handle attached, it could double as a proper shield. Someone pointed out there was no handle. He shrugged that off too, saying the new woodworking shed in Building 7 could easily add one. Someone asked why not just buy a finished shield directly from whoever had that shed. The old man stammered, red-faced, before pivoting to claims about the board having character being passed down from his great-grandfather, aged to perfection. Everyone laughed at that. Someone asked his price. He said he had a small appetite, whatever food people could spare would do. A guy offered a bag of grasshoppers he'd caught yesterday. The old man happily accepted, admitting he hadn't eaten those in years. As he left, he mentioned offhand that the woodworking shed was in Building 7 if anyone wanted a handle added. Free tip, he called it. The old man wandered off in a roundabout path, eventually circling back to Building 7. In the stairwell, he wiped fog off his glasses, then climbed up and knocked on a door. Huang Tao answered, having apparently listened to the whole exchange from upstairs. He seemed uneasy about how obvious the sales pitch sounded. The old man brushed it off. The point wasn't subtlety. It was that Huang Tao had the only working tools in the whole complex right now. Scarcity did the rest. Huang Tao went to fetch payment, a bag of meat, and handed it over. The old man bowed graciously, wishing him prosperous business, then left. Watching him go, Huang Tao frowned slightly. The old man had approached him the night before offering to drum up business and introduce a former carpenter neighbor, in exchange for 3 pounds of crocodile meat. Huang Tao had agreed, not really for the advertising, but because without an actual carpenter, that woodworking shed was useless, and all the meat he'd spent building it would have been wasted. Elsewhere in the market, a vendor braiding grass rope looked up as I stopped at his stall, immediately launching into a pitch. Want to buy a rabbit? Freshly caught today, only dead ones? No live rabbits? He laughed at the idea, said rabbits were too slippery to catch alive. Killing them was way easier. He wanted salt in exchange, 1 small portion for the whole rabbit. I walked off without a word. Salt was getting scarcer by the day in the complex, not something I'd trade freely. He called after me, offering to negotiate down to vegetables instead. I kept walking. A dead rabbit wasn't worth much to me beyond a bit of meat and hide. My home had plenty of clothes already since the whole apartment came with us. Further along, a stall caught my eye, bandages and medicated patches laid out neatly, drawing a small crowd. Someone asked if they were expired. The seller, a young woman in a black top, insisted they were fresh, bought just a month before everything happened, packaging and dates still intact. Asked what she wanted in exchange, she hesitated, clearly unsure how to price things. Wanting high-calorie food, something filling, open to reasonable offers. A sharp-eyed guy offered a bag of instant noodles for the whole box. She looked thrilled for a second, until he clarified he only wanted 1 pack of bandages for that price, not the whole box. She pushed back, saying 15 pieces needed at least 5 bags of noodles in exchange. I stepped in. 5 bags barely covers 2 days of food. I'll trade 3 pounds of crocodile meat for the entire box. Deal? She agreed instantly. I told her to wait while I ran home for the meat. Meat wasn't scarce for me right now. Trading some for medical supplies like this felt smart. Out here, even a small, untreated wound could turn deadly fast from infection. The sharp-eyed guy who'd spoken first got annoyed, insisting he'd made his offer first and deserved a response before anyone else jumped in. She apologized quietly but stood firm. His offer was too low. She wasn't selling to him. That only frustrated him more, especially since my offer was clearly better and now he wanted in too. I turned to him with a grin. Got plenty of instant noodles, huh? 1 pound of crocodile meat for 5 bags. Deal? He looked insulted at first. At least 2 pounds. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him sweat. 2 pounds. You'll need 8 bags for that. He hesitated hard, then gritted his teeth. 7. Deal. He looked almost surprised I agreed so fast, unsure if he'd won or lost that trade. But honestly, after 7 straight days of instant noodles alone, he was desperate for actual meat. Walking home to grab everything, my brother asked quietly if 2 pounds of meat for 7 bags of noodles was really a fair trade. Noodles were just carbs, no protein or vitamins, wouldn't even fill you up properly. I shook my head. Doesn't work like that. Noodles come with salt, and that seasoning packet actually tastes decent out here. Out here, that counts as a real treat. A treat? He wasn't convinced. I'm sick of the taste already. I laughed. Wait until you've been eating plain food for 2 months straight, then tell me that again. Besides, fresh crocodile meat doesn't keep long. Better to trade it now before it goes bad. I split the meat at home using a bathroom scale, then went down to make the trades. The instant noodles the sharp-eyed guy brought turned out to be my old favorite flavor from school, spicy pickled pepper beef. I remembered mixing it with a mushroom chicken flavor back then, combining both seasoning packets for a better taste when I was a growing teenager who could never get full off 1 pack. Hadn't touched that flavor much since college, except for the turkey ones lately. Checking the sky, I told Xiaowen to go wake her dad. Time to set the fish traps. She and her father came down together shortly after. Right as we reached the south gate, a battered group limped back into the complex. I recognized Wang Jun leading them immediately. Nothing like the confident guy from before. Hair a mess full of twigs and leaves, clothes torn, pant legs covered in burrs, a fresh scratch across his face. His whole team looked equally rough. I walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. Being back somewhere familiar seemed to finally let him relax, and he leaned into me, exhausted. I asked what happened. He forced a smile that looked worse than crying. He warned me to stay away from the western grasslands. A wolf pack of over 20 had shown up out there, bigger than Alaskan wolves. He straightened up after a moment, thanked me, and started to leave. Then he turned back, mentioning he'd caught 2 more rabbits for me, promising to sort it out later before heading off to rest. The rest of his group trailed behind silently, heads down, the mood heavy. I watched them go, glancing past them at the dense, shadowy forest beyond. Let's go, I said. Whatever happened out there, we still had our own work to do. As it got dark, the area outside the complex emptied out. We stayed careful the whole walk, watching for crocodiles in the river and anything moving in the bushes. We reached the backwater bend from earlier that day. Deng dropped the tiger fish guts into both traps, tied the rope to a tree on the bank, sank the traps into the water, and covered them with dead branches and grass for camouflage. Walking back, he told me to come early tomorrow, ideally before 5, before the crowds picked up. I agreed. Dawn meant fewer eyes around, safer for collecting the catch without anyone noticing. Back home, I pulled the fresh tiger fish from the cellar, cut off 3 pounds, grabbed a bandage too, and headed to Building 1, Unit 1, Apartment 801. Wang Jun's wife Lin answered the door. The living room reeked of cigarette smoke. Wang Jun stubbed his out, standing up with a tired smile, apologizing for having nothing to offer. They'd run out of fruit. I sat beside him, placed the bag of meat on the table, then pulled out the bandage and set it in front of him. Saw the cut on your face. Don't want it getting infected, Something flickered in his eyes, grateful. He thanked me simply. Then he sighed, explaining he'd set extra traps after our last conversation about trading rabbits, and today's catch was 2 more females. They'd also spotted a deer worth hunting, but ran into the wolf pack instead, lost 3 people from the team. Made sense why his group looked smaller than before. He called for his wife to bring out the rabbits. She carried out a cardboard box from the bathroom, holding a gray one and a white one, slightly smaller than the last pair, but healthy enough. I mentioned the bag held fresh tiger fish I'd caught that day, telling them to eat it soon before it turned. He froze at the word, tiger fish, glancing at the bag, letting out a long breath. This place really does have everything, doesn't it? They travel in packs, so stay out of the water if you can. A lot of the animals here run bigger than what we're used to on Earth. As long as we're careful, surviving them should be manageable. The real disaster would be something ancient and massive suddenly showing up. He paused, then mentioned he was holding off on exploring west for now, too far from the complex to escape another wolf encounter. Instead, he planned to map out the north and east sides over the next couple days, and asked if I wanted to join. I thought it over and decided the risk was too high. If something big showed up, my compound bow wouldn't do much. I told him I'd rather keep fishing while the river was still relatively empty of competition. He looked a little disappointed, but respected the choice. I carried the box home and put both new rabbits in the pen. Looking at all 4 rabbits together, something like pride settled in. For now, 40, then 400, didn't feel so far off anymore. That night passed quietly. The next morning, I checked my results first thing. I'd survived day 7. Caught a tiger fish and grown my rabbit herd. Score, 13 points. Reward, a recruitment card, a tamed adult harpy eagle, plus 3 more fish traps. My heart started racing looking at that reward. A brand new type of card, one I'd never seen before, a recruitment card. So the system really could produce living creatures, not just buildings and resources. But almost immediately, a new problem hit me. If an eagle suddenly appeared in my apartment, how would I explain that to anyone who noticed? This wasn't like the building or resource cards I could keep hidden. A recruited creature needed an actual purpose. Otherwise, it was just eating up food for nothing. Might be smarter to just leave the card unused for now and save the resources. The recruitment card appeared in my hand, warm and smooth, deep purple on the back, a fierce-looking harpy eagle on the front. The moment I touched it, I understood exactly how it worked. Use it in open space, and whatever it holds gets summoned permanently, no going back into a card. What comes out is a real, living creature with all the needs that come with that. Hunger, exhaustion, injury, sickness, aging, fear, happiness, all of it. It would come with loyalty starting at 60. Too low, and while it couldn't hurt me directly, it might slack off, ignore orders, or run when things got dangerous. As the one who summoned it, I'd also be able to sense its basic emotions. An eagle. Before today, I barely knew anything about them beyond big bird of prey. No idea how strong one actually was, whether it could hold its own against an armed adult. If it was small, I could probably sneak it out the bathroom window facing the outer wall. Same spot that bat used the first night. But if it was big, there was no hiding something like that flying around. After thinking it over, I decided to hold off using it for now. Better as a hidden trump card, something I could summon in an emergency if things got really bad. The 3 extra fish traps were a nicer surprise, easy to use as backups or set somewhere new. Downstairs, Deng couldn't stop talking, practically buzzing with excitement, insisting his trap placement yesterday was perfect, promising today's catch would be huge. At the spot, I pulled the rope and lifted the first trap out of the water. Something inside thrashed hard, splashing everywhere. Great haul. This untouched river really did have plenty to offer. Under flashlight, the top section held 4 fat loaches. The next section had small, lively bitterlings jumping around out of water. The third was empty. The fourth held a few clear shrimp. Check the second one, Deng said. I lifted it. What the? I dropped it straight back into the water. Deng asked what was wrong. My face had gone stiff. Big eel in there. A really big one. He shrugged it off. Eels don't bite. Then he paused, asking carefully if it had markings on it. Yeah, his expression shifted instantly. He swallowed hard, then crept forward carefully to lift the trap himself. Inside, coiled up, a thick brown eel with distinct patterns stared back at him with a cold, triangular head. What the hell? He dropped it too. Even braced for it. That stare from something with a head that shape rattled him. It's got a triangle head. I asked if he recognized it. He guessed it looked like a fer-de-lance. So a pit viper, I said. Silence between us. Deng pointed out the trap was probably ruined now, unless the snake eventually found its own way out. I said quietly, if it's still hanging around here, would you keep setting traps in this spot? Getting caught means this is its hunting ground. Next time, it might not be inside the trap when we check. We exchanged a look, both understanding. This snake needed dealing with. We dragged the trap carefully onto the bank. I told my brother to stay back. I grabbed a stick, but Deng stopped me. Don't just hit it. The trap's not sturdy enough. Break the mesh, and it could slip right through the gap. That thing looks angry enough already. So how do we handle it? Let me start. He took a breath. The snake was coiled in the second compartment, cramped, agitated, its head swaying side to side, sensing us nearby. He carefully spread the trap out, then wedged rocks against the first and third compartments to pin the middle one in place, keeping it from bouncing back even under weight. I understood the logic. My turn. I brought over a large rock and let it drop straight down onto the snake. It struggled hard, tail thrashing wildly outside the trap. I kept stacking more rocks on top. Slowly, its frantic movement turned rigid, then finally stopped completely, tail motionless for several minutes. My brother watched the whole thing tense, asking quietly if it was dead. Not sure. Snakes are tough. Let's give it a bit, I said, oddly calm now that it was pinned. Deng looked genuinely disappointed about the ruined trap, noting several sections had already warped from the weight. I shrugged it off. Traps can be fixed. Killing something like this is worth way more than one trap. I wondered privately how the daily scoring system would rate killing a venomous snake. Probably not much by weight, but if it counted threat and danger level, this had to score well. We emptied the first trap's catch into a bucket, covered it with cloth, then stood watch over the pinned snake for a full 10 minutes before finally clearing the rocks away. Its head and body were completely flattened. The trap itself had taken real damage, the connecting frames between sections bent out of shape. Still cautious, I poked it with a stick several times to be sure before finally shaking it loose from the trap. It hit the ground like a limp, ruined mess. Only then did I finally relax. Crocodiles, tiger fish, now a venomous pit viper. This river really was full of surprises, never quite sure what it would throw at me next. Deng picked up the ruined trap, bending it slightly, sighing at how badly it was warped. I finished the job on the pit viper, smashing its head with a rock. He picked up the dead snake by the tail, arms stretched out, thick as a grown man's forearm, head still touching the ground even with his arm raised. Shame about the poison glands getting crushed. Meat's no good now. Might as well use it as bait. I remembered something from school. Snake venom is protein-based. Boiling destroys it completely. He offered to bring the meat home for me to eat. I coughed and said we'd just use it as bait instead. He tucked some of it into the trap, sank it back down, covered it with branches and grass again. Shame about the other trap. I'll see if it's fixable once we're home. My brother looked at the damaged one in his hands. The gaps don't look that big, bro. Might still work fine. I shook my head. What if another snake gets caught in it? It slips through a gap and bites you, and we've got no anti-venom. A crocodile bite might cost you a hand if you're unlucky. A venomous snake bite could cost a lot more than that. He agreed that made sense. Footsteps came down the slope behind us. 4 men carrying buckets and fishing gear passed by on the trail. One of them turned his head, and I recognized Lu Chongjin. He looked just as surprised to run into us. His eyes scanned the group, landing on the equipment. Old Deng, he said, forcing something like a smile. Deng greeted him back casually, asking if he was switching spots. Lu said the crowds were too thick where he usually fished, barely caught anything yesterday, so he was heading downstream instead. His eyes landed on the trap in my brother's hands, tone turning bitter. That's a fish trap, right? Old Deng, you've had one this whole time and never once brought it out when we fished together? It's mine, I said. Lu looked genuinely thrown by that answer, glancing between me and the trap, clearly regretting not saving us a fishing spot earlier. Maybe he'd have gotten access to. The guy next to him, wearing a flat cap, raised an eyebrow. Hey, you selling that trap? I held it up. Sure. 50 pounds of fish, and it's yours right now. Both Lu and the cap guy's faces went dark. 50 pounds? Might as well rob someone. The cap guy scoffed. You know how much meat that is? Barely any family in this whole complex could pull that together. Deng thought privately. That wasn't quite true. Anyone who'd helped kill the first crocodile had gotten dozens of pounds easy. Lu tried negotiating instead. How about 10 pounds? Fish sells for $6 or $7 a pound normally, and this trap isn't even that big. I lost interest fast. That's not even a real offer. Forget it. He bumped it up to 15. I ignored him completely. He took a long breath, glanced around to memorize the spot, then turned and walked off, telling himself the trap was just one hunting method among many anyway, and it wasn't even safe out here permanently, could get destroyed by a crocodile or stolen by someone else. Privately, with a little spite, he hoped I'd learn to watch it around the clock, in case it went missing one day. Watching the four of them leave, I narrowed my eyes. Deng warned me they might try to steal it later. I thought about the eagle card sitting and used, already forming a plan. Yeah, I know. He blamed himself for ever fishing alongside people like Lu in the first place, feeling responsible for exposing the trap. I told him not to worry about it. If not Lu, it would have been someone else eventually. Getting spotted was inevitable. I already had something in mind, and we'd set the trap again tonight as planned. He didn't ask what the plan was, just said he trusted my judgment. Then, hesitating, he asked if I'd really sell the trap for 50 pounds of meat if someone actually offered it. Of course I would, I said without hesitation. 50 pounds was 50 pounds. Only a fool would turn that down. I wondered idly whether trades like that even counted toward the daily scoring system. If they did, I just found a neat little shortcut. We chatted a bit more, then reached yesterday's fishing spot. Deng handed over my newly repaired rod. After a slow morning, guess beginner's luck had run out. I only landed one small minnow. Sitting too long left my back stiff. I stood, stretched, and something on a nearby plant's leaves caught my eye. Familiar somehow, though I couldn't place it right away. Then it hit me. This had to be the mud potato from that torn plant guide. Gray sweet potato, underground tuber, grows in swampy ground, leaves mildly toxic and inedible, but the root itself is edible, bland but filling, 2 harvests a year. Despite the name's similarity to regular sweet potato, the leaves looked completely different, grayish-green, covered in fine fuzz, star-shaped with 5 points. I dug around with a short stick, and soon pulled up a whole cluster of gray, ball-shaped roots. Rough skin, irregular ring patterns, looking more like mud-covered stones than food. This one plant alone had 5 tubers, each roughly fist-sized, probably because nothing out here ate them underground, letting them grow undisturbed. Altogether, maybe 2 or 3 pounds just from this single plant. If these bred like regular potatoes, propagating from cuttings, this could become a real staple food source eventually. Problem was, I barely had any right now, and no proper space to grow them yet. Not without unlocking the level 1 farmland card, which needed 400 square meters of open space. Hoped I'd get my hands on a few more blank expansion cards soon.